Warning. The following contains bright, flashing lights and /or imagery that may cause discomfort and /or seizures for those with photosensitive epilepsy. Viewer discretion is advised.
Bernardo, a fellow child of Mexico, but just as I was also cast into the great expanse of the world, your life path out of Mexico has been kind of interesting. We'll get there. Where were you born specifically in Mexico, Bernardo?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Oh,
Good to meet you in person too.
this is the first time we meet, and we've just been
Yeah.
talking for a bit
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
your amazing story.
And we're talking about Richard, also the legend.
Oh yeah, the Richard.
My manager, to those who don't know, is my manager.
So Richard is somebody that's in the security field in the U.S. Great guy. Somebody I met at a Byron Rogers event, executive protection event.
Right.
Great dude.
He's an awesome dude. Yeah.
And he's like, hey, Ed, you're a weirdo and you've been through some crazy shit. I have somebody that I know who's also been through some crazy shit. You guys probably could be friends. So he asked me to look into you, and man, your story is
Thanks, man. Thanks.
it's a wild story. The fact that you know,
I guess it is a wild story. I don't stop. Like, I often don't stop and look back, but when I do, I'm like, the fuck, man! I just keep going.
Yeah. Well, there's a case in point to be made both for not looking back.
Yeah.
But every now and then you really have to take a knee and look back at your story.
Yeah. Because you also appreciate a little. Like, you have to appreciate yourself. you know?
Yeah.
And if you don't stop, sometimes you don't value yourself enough.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I don't like resting on my laurels.
Yeah,
Something a good
I
friend of
understand.
mine told me, like, you don't rest on your laurels. I don't.
Yeah.
Like, whatever I did, every day I have to
do it better.
pay
do
the rent
something
again. Yeah.
So
So I was born in Mexico City. Sorry.
Mexico City. What part of Mexico City? Mexico City is a big place.
Yeah, it's pretty big. I'm from the south of Mexico City,
Okay.
from an area that's called Colina del Sur,
Okay.
or Colinas del Sur.
Yeah.
And it's really like nobody knows this place, and there's nothing there. It's in between an area called Santa Lucia, El Olivar del Conde,
Yeah.
and another area that's like Barranca del Muerto, Las Águilas.
Yeah. Los Águilas. Yeah.
So it's like in between those areas, in the hill area, like mountains. And I was born in Mexico City. My family, they're Mexicans for many, many generations, but I feel like from my mother's side, they came from Spain at some point
Okay.
to Mexico.
Okay.
And then from my father's side, they're from Europe, Eastern Europe. So,
Okay.
but also many generations back.
So the culturally Jewish. Yeah.
Well, from my father's side.
Yeah. From your father's side, that's
Mhm.
that's your Jewish connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did your father do for a living? Like, what was the business?
So I know that my father was an engineer, or is an engineer.
Yeah.
But I've seen my father 2 times in my life,
Okay.
and he hasn't looked at me.
Okay.
So I don't know much
it
about
just-
him or his family.
Yeah. So
My parents weren't married. And then,
a distant father, basically, figure.
I mean,
you
as
were growing up.
distant as can be, like, as far as he's concerned, I guess I don't exist. So, it's pretty
I'm,
distant. I would say.
I'm sorry about that, by the way.
I mean, yeah, it's thanks. It's
But
it's annoying, but I don't miss him. Like, I don't need him.
I-
It just pisses me off that there's someone close to me that can go to sleep at night and be like, oh, I don't know this guy. Yeah.
what about your mom, though?
What about her?
Like, what was she in your life when you're growing up?
Well, my mom is she's a very hardworking person, and I mean, I admire her commitment. Her relentlessness. She's just She just does whatever it needs, man. Whatever it takes. She's a soldier. She's a warrior.
All terrain.
Yeah.
All terrain.
All terrain completely. She's a very emotional person. So she does that crying at the same time, but she does it.
Yeah.
And she did. I mean, she did a great job, I think.
Do you have any brothers or sisters, or is it just you?
I don't have any brothers and sisters.
It's just you.
Just me.
So she, on her own, somewhere in Mexico City,
Yeah.
figured out how to bring you up, basically.
Yeah, I mean, she had sometimes 2-3 jobs, and
What were you doing while she was working? Like, what were you into when you were a kid?
yeah. Well, when I was very young, I've always been very active. Like always trying to get into sports or being outside or doing something. And so when I was younger, I was usually just playing around, trying to do soccer. I played football also in Mexico City, American football for a while. I did, soccer, whatever I could.
Did you get your first TBIs in that time?
No, but well, maybe I did. I don't remember actually.
That's exactly how you did.
You're right. Yeah.
So you're basically a rough and tumble kid, basically, when you're growing up.
Yeah. Oh, playing in the street. Like I have some of my best friends are my neighbors in Mexico. Like it's just unbelievable. We've known each other.
Set up a goal post on each side of the street.
Yeah, and
close
play
it
with
off.
the frutzi.
Oh yeah, fruitsy. Yeah. Or tie the fruitsy on your bike,
Yeah.
to
Oh,
make
yeah,
it
yeah.
sound like a motorcycle.
Definitely,
Dude,
definitely.
all kids in Mexico grew up with that shit.
It's unbelievable.
So you come up with you come up in this condition where you're just your mom and she's working. I mean, people like that come up in those conditions, they usually have a lot of lives going on inside of their heads as they make their ways as being a kid, and we externalize some of that shit. Yours was physical exertion and physicality and just being a boy and running around and doing shit. Any trouble?
Yeah.
Any trouble at all growing up?
Yeah, I mean, yes. So the doctors would say, "Oh, it's hyperactivity, it's ADHD." I don't believe that exists. I think it's bullshit. But certainly I was very like
You were very hyperactive.
Yeah, I was hyperactive, but I get bored, right? So I would like. I don't want to sit down and read a book. Like I want to throw a ball and play soccer and
You
whatever.
just want to be a kid.
Yeah, and if you let me do that, I'm going to be focused for 15 hours doing it. Anyway, so what that meant was that I was very intense, I would say, for
Fights.
other parents.
Fights.
I did get in fights. I was cursing, right? And there's like, oh my God, no, don't hang out with him.
Like a sailor.
He's
It's like,
just grosero.
what was your curse that got you in trouble? Hijos de la verga.
Something like pinche culero, or like something. I don't know.
Something
Yeah.
benign, but a mother heard you and like, don't hang out with
Yeah,
that
yeah.
boy.
Like they would invite me to. They would invite me to these things, right? And you know where it always happens? It always happens with like the rich friends, right? It's
Yeah.
always like in the house of someone because they're inviting all the kids, right? So imagine the house they have.
Yeah.
And I remember one time we were playing baseball. I fucking hate baseball, but anyways, we were playing baseball, and I don't know what happened. I said something, and I just see the parents like looking at the kid that was hosting, like, "Oh my God, how did you bring this devil?" Right? But it's. I guess I just hope my son's not like that.
That's a curse. Man. That's a curse. You usually make them.
Yeah.
You come up in this place. Your mom's working multiple jobs. Are you escaping in your mind? Like, what is your mental life? Like, when I was a kid and I had some of those, I had a shit ton of issues as well growing up, and I had parents who were absent. In my mind, I was always fantasizing and envisioning this. One day I'll grow up enough that I can just figure my way out, fucking run. Were you
I mean,
thinking about some of these things?
I wasn't much of a like deep thinker back then. Everything was just immediate to me, and you know what? I think I learned that probably from my mother, because she denies everything.
Yeah.
Like she just like there's a problem, she ignores it. She doesn't acknowledge it. It's just not there,
Yeah.
and we keep going. I don't know how she does that, and she's very compartmentalized.
Yeah.
Like everything is compartments. So I was like, like the elephant in the room, we don't look at it, basically. So we just keep going.
The superpower of dissociation.
Yeah.
and then you think that's what you learned from her?
I think I learned from her at that time that because I mean, obviously I had questions growing up of things and there's things that bothered me, but I was just really trying to have a good time all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just
Like I just want to have fun and I care about right now and that's it.
you know, what does your teenage years look like though? Like you're
Oh, that was bad. Yeah.
so
Well, that's when it gets more problematic because then you start getting.
so you're growing up. You're imagine you're a bit more. If you're physical when you're a kid, usually it means you're capable when you're a young adult and or a teenager, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think as a teenager.
What's on your walls? What
Oh
music,
yeah, that's a great question.
What's on your walls when you're a teenager?
And I remember that perfectly. I'll tell you this right now. It's still like that right now. Every time I go, the room's still the same.
You just haven't grown
Yeah,
up.
it's just the same thing.
You haven't changed.
I had like someone brought me a carpet, small carpet like this of the Los Angeles Raiders.
Okay.
I used to like football.
Yeah.
And instead of using it as a carpet, I put it on the wall because it's so nice.
Yeah. That's some Eastern European shit. Dude, so maybe that's what's going on there.
It's possible. I never thought about that. I had my grandfather and my uncles had some like deer head that they hunted at some point. I just put it in my room.
It looks cool as shit.
Yeah,
it's a fucking dead animal on your wall.
And yeah, it's you know, you can put a hat on there and everything. I had a poster from Hakeem Olajuwon. He signed it to me in Martí, in Deportes Martí.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I framed it and put it on the wall. And then I have one hanging like, you know, the angel, like the
Michael or Gabriel, the one that's guiding children across the
El
bridge.
Ángel de la Guarda.
Yeah,
So the guardian angel. So I have a picture of that. That's his like this like female angel. She's saving like 2 kids doing something. I don't know where I got that from, but I have that.
Is that from your mom?
I don't know how it got there. Yeah.
Is your mom Catholic?
Well, her family, yeah.
Yeah. So that's probably where it came from.
That's probably where it came from. Yes.
Yeah, that's a very.
But how that physically got into the room, I have no idea.
That's
just there. Yeah.
That's a very Mexican mother thing. It's usually something they do themselves. They'll walk in there and they'll put it there for like.
Yeah, well, that
what
little
music?
cars, vehicles.
What music is playing in the background when you're a
So
kid?
when I was young, actually, my mother introduced me to music, and it was rock music, right? So it would be like a Queen or
the good shit.
Yeah, stuff like that she would used to listen to, right? Like she has like Supertramp or some shit like that. I don't listen to that now, but it did open me up to. My first cassettes that I bought because it was cassettes back then.
Yeah.
Right?
You put you put a pencil in there and just spin it around so you don't fuck up your Walkman.
And my first cassettes were Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and Michael Jackson.
Completely ruined off the bat. Great.
Yeah.
Great.
And then I got Bon Jovi, and those were things that I used to like at the beginning a lot. I still like it today. I went back to that. And then I had a time of punk rock when I was a teenager. It's more like, it's a little more destructive, I guess, in a way, yeah.
Was it, like what bands, like what type of punk bands that you listened to?
I divide punk rock into, the pop punk rock.
Yeah,
right? Like
Blink-182.
Right, like that shit, which I also liked.
Green Day.
Yeah. And then, the heavy one, like The Exploited, right? Like things like that where it's like... Yeah. Damn, dude! Like this is fucking heavy metal, basically.
I hate cop cars. Something like Remember that? There was an Exploited song that said, "I hate cop cars." Basically, that was this whole song. And I remember, I do hate cop cars. Dude, it definitely does something to a young mind.
Oh yeah.
As far as a drive,
it's rough. Yeah, it's rough.
A drive forward. Are you dressing the part as well?
Yeah. Well, and this is the teenagers, right? So I was. I had a leather jacket, man, with spikes. I had that shit. I didn't have a mohawk, though.
You would know somebody was legit if they had the jacket and it smelled like shit. That's how you know it was legit punk rock,
and
dude.
That's why, I liked punk rock, but I wasn't a punk rocker because when I went to that concert I told you about, those were real punk rockers. They're homeless, like they're sleeping outside drunk.
Yeah, these are from the Chopo. These are the Chopo punks.
Like I go to the Chopo as a tourist, right?
So if people don't know what El Chopo is like a punk rock
market.
open air market in Mexico City, and you're
amazing.
you're going there when you're a kid. It's not a safe environment.
I'm sure it's not there.
But you're there because fuck it, right?
Yeah, and there's the stands where they sell like the
Bootleg.
like the perverted stuff, right? Like the underwear with
Oh,
spikes and shit like that, and
The
you're like,
kink,
wow, what the hell is
the
this
kink
place?
stuff. You're yeah, you're young, and all of a sudden you see the strap on somewhere. Yeah, it's.
But I would buy like all the spikes like for the jacket, and I was playing guitar, so like the strap of the
strap.
guitar, I would like put the things on it, and shirts of like all these bands and shit.
So when I was doing all that shit, I was rebelling against something,
Right.
And my end, both of my parents kind of basically went off and into their worlds after a family tragedy happened on my end, and my brother passed away when I was young, and that basically made them just
Sorry to hear.
Again, it made me who I am. So I've been kind of realizing some of these issues for now. But when I was in that process of trying to figure things out for myself, when I would go into punk rock or when I would listen to music like that, the anger was all about escape. I wanted to fucking figure out my way out.
Yeah.
Right. When I say my way out, I mean I didn't want to depend on anybody. I wanted to be the most absolutely independent motherfucker you could ever find.
Yeah, I can connect to that.
Were you trying to hustle? Were you trying to figure out money? Like, what was the situation in that regard?
Well, I was low maintenance, I guess. I used to get 10 pesos or something like that, which was enough to get me through like the metro and all of that to get to school. And sometimes I was enough to buy like a torta or something like that.
Torta de tamal.
Yeah, and that's it, man. Like that's all I needed. With my friends, you do hustle sometimes because, for example, my mother worked 3 jobs and she got me into a private school. I was going to a private school.
That's not easy.
Well, it's not easy for her, and I was so I was exposed to people who had a lot of money because there were really rich people there.
Yeah.
And so it's easy to get them like, hey, dude, you have 5 pesos. So then you use that to buy your torta, and or like he doesn't want his food or something like that, right?
That's Sears school. It's like
in a way, yeah.
Yeah,
and I was thinking about it. I slept on the streets sometimes, not because I had to, just because we were like just partying and like coming back, and we couldn't go to any house at 5 a.m. So
just put a jacket
sleep
on
outside of the school or whatever. And
so basically, hardship of that nature and that kind was like part of your.
I think it was a way of surviving. I am very independent.
Yeah.
Like obviously, I'm sure I don't want to be bragging them, but compared to the majority of people, I think I'm extremely independent. The people I've met in my life, it must be from that period because, like you said, like I was trying to become my own man.
Yeah.
Right? Also because of the situation with my father and everything, I have father figures in my life. But it's just moments, where like I saw someone say something, I was like, oh, okay, it had an impact on me as a male, but I didn't have any other impact. So I was trying to build my character.
Did you think about that? Did you like say, I need to figure out somebody that I could basically emulate? Or
it was natural.
It was natural. They would show up, you would take a knee, you would learn something from these men, and they would leave. And,
I would just like see it, right? Witness it. And then it stays with you. Like in my case, it stays as memories of small moments.
Yeah,
that just go with me forever.
Can you share one of those from when you were a kid?
Yeah, definitely. For example,
and the reason I ask is there's a lot of men out there that will take time with some kid somewhere randomly and think it doesn't matter or think it's going to be forgotten.
That's crazy. Yeah,
I've had some men when I was growing up. I remember this one guy who was a boxing teacher who basically he didn't go easy on me. And the lesson was that life wasn't going to go easy on me, and he was basically keeping me honest by being brutally honest.
Great teachers out there.
He's I don't know where he went, but he changed the shit for me.
Wow.
Taking a punch in the face was something I didn't realize came with a lesson, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you share one of those?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some. And by the way, today is I mean, it is a sad day in some ways because it's also an anniversary of my uncle passing away, and he was really like a father to me,
I'm sorry about that. What was his name?
Daniel.
Daniel.
And he was, I think, one of those figures. And you know, some of the things I remember from him was, for example, as a kid, him swimming with me in the sea, taking me to the deep end, right?
He would take it to the ocean and
He would
just
take me like deep, right? Where I'm like, wow, like I can't be here unless I'm with him. And he's like showing me how to swim, how to get under waves, how to fish, right? Like he's just not scared of anything anywhere, right? And he's just like capable of doing anything. And like
he
to
would
me, he was like a hero.
he would allow you to do dangerous shit supervised.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
trusted him to be there for
Exactly, yeah.
you. Yeah, that's everything.
He was a great figure like that for me. I know he has his own family, his own children. He had, but still, to me, like those little moments
We're everything.
was what I hold on to
Yeah.
as that father figure in sometimes, and my grandfather as well. My grandfather, for example, one great moment was I was living somewhere else in Mexico at that time with my mom, and I don't know what he was doing there with me, and we come to the door of the apartment building where I was living, and my mother, she had a bochito, you know, like one of those like Volkswagen
Yeah. But
sedan.
BW Bug.
Yeah. And we had that car for a long time. And anyway, so we're coming to the entrance of the house. I see someone inside of our car that's trying to like
Start it.
open because you know how those chains. So I want to have one of those chains that you lock there. And he's trying to open this chain. I tell him, Grandpa, he's trying to steal our car. And my grandpa goes to this man. He's like, órale, cabrón, ¿qué estás haciendo la chingada? And he comes up. This guy's younger than my grandfather. And my grandfather fucking throws a punch in his chest. Like, he punches him in the chest, like pushes him back like 3 meters. I'm like, wow, it's a man, you know? And the guy's like, no, señor, no, cálmese, you know. So you know, he's an old man, basically. He's a grandpa,
You just
right?
throw a cannonball.
He's not
at
a
this fucking-
fighter. This guy, like my grandpa, man, I mean,
But his
I love him to death. I respect him. But now that I'm like an adult, I'm like, this guy like didn't know what the fuck he was
he
doing.
just threw a punch in his
But
chest.
he was a man, man. Like he did it like that,
Yeah.
you know. And he came to protect his family and everything. And
Violence of action.
and you need that shit as
Yeah.
a kid also. Yeah.
So that's interesting. You know, some kids have that experience, and there's a man next to them, and they don't do anything.
Yeah.
And that is also an experience for kids.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's like, oh shit, I'm never safe. Is usually what those kids think.
Yeah. You're right.
So
yeah.
your grandfather basically throwing a cannonball at this dude's chest, which is it's funny, but it's also like that had to have happened. If he didn't do that,
Yeah.
you would have seen weakness and you would have been felt unsafe. Hey, nobody did anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that shit will fuck up a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
definitely.
in a way that was a great reaction.
Yeah.
You punk rock, you have no plans, it seems, at this point in your life. What were you aiming at? Like you're a teenager.
Nothing, man.
Nothing. You were just on autopilot.
Well, what I was doing on autopilot was I was trying to be someone. You know, I was trying to have value in the society that I was in, which is in the school that I was in.
Yeah.
I was trying to be someone that was cool, right? And it sounds cliche, but you know, you go through great lengths to do that.
Yep.
So I identified the you know the parties, the people that were cool in my view, that people respected, that people kind of like, and you know, respect is also difficult to understand because some people feared them. So to me as a kid, that's like, oh, they respect him. Fear is not always respect the way you want it to be.
Yeah.
Right. But you know, you only learn that later on. And so I associated myself with them because I thought that would elevate me.
Yeah. Fear.
Because otherwise, who am I? You know, I'm not rich. I'm not like the prettiest kid. I'm not like the smartest kid. I didn't have anything basically.
Yeah.
I was wearing, you know, shitty shoes. Everybody had their lines like Michael Jordan's, right? So I associated myself with some that were also like me. They weren't rich kids, but they were powerful.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was the way to go, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's so unnatural. I don't think there's anything really
No.
wrong with it.
No, you're
Trying to be alpha in a way, right? You're trying to go
it's-
like, you know, be respected.
It's your introduction into tribalism.
Yeah,
you know,
that's what it is. You're
basically
right.
you're a kid, and in the past, tribes would send their kids off to go a hunting party or
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's exactly what high school is in a lot of ways. You go off and you
Yeah.
figure out what your tribe is. And
Yeah.
some of those tribes suck or
Yeah.
or matter, but only in that space. And once
Yeah.
high school's over, that
Well,
world's gone.
this high school, man, this was a special place because this is something we didn't discuss, but this is a French high school.
Okay.
So I was studying in French. There's a lot of like expat French people.
Yeah.
Some of them, like even from like Morocco, like we'd have like the ambassador of Morocco, Mexico, his kids studying in my
Studied there.
class.
Okay.
Algeria, things like that, right? French, obviously. And it was a great school. And there were some characters there of people that they're special, man. They're really special. And
Yeah.
I'm not really in touch with a lot of them nowadays because we really went in different paths. Like at the end of the day,
what did most of them kind of go into if you kind of think back on it? Most
so
of them
the
were,
ones that were like, the rich kids, the ones that were like more
family money.
yeah, so they went, into like these jobs, high-tech jobs, startup jobs. They're all posting like their pronouns and how to like, talk well in a corporate setting, or like
Yeah.
they're like directors of art of this thing, or like director of economy of IBM, I don't know, whatever, finance, all of this stuff. Some of them are journalists and things like that. And then the ones that were my friends, some of those guys were also my friends, but the ones that I was hanging out with, I guess the ones that I was associated with, man, I mean,
They didn't do that well.
it doesn't seem like that. I mean,
Like so.
there's one of my friends, I remember the last time I saw him, it's like 2006 or something. He was living in France. He went to study at university in France. And what he did for a living was he was selling kebab, right? And like one of these kebab places, and like stealing bikes. That's what he did for a living in Europe.
Sounds good.
And
That sounds-
nowadays, I see he's like trying to get into like, so he's kind of like providing services to web design or something like
Yeah.
that. But
basically a bunch of shit shows.
In a way, yeah,
A lot of them basically seem
they're
like-
hippies, I think, in a way, because they're like, they're all about like, some of them really like rock climbing and
well. I think if you gravitated towards them, they're all people that are seeking a dopamine rush in a way, in shape or
Yeah,
form when you were a kid.
yeah, that's
And a
true.
lot of them go, you become a junkie when you're a kid. And I did some of that. I used to skateboard. I used to do graffiti and like tag places. I
Yeah.
had a band, got in a
Right.
bunch of fights.
yeah.
I just wanted that hit, So
Yeah.
when people know, like, what did you do after that? Well, I
Yeah.
went into to work for the government. I'm like, oh, that fucking makes sense because that's something a retard would do.
Yeah.
So
Well,
well, for me, it's in Mexico. It's something a retarded person would do.
right. That's the thing, right? In a way, I've been trying to understand what the difference is, right? Because I think like the essence of working as a soldier, as a cop, as a all of these jobs has to be the same essence across the world.
Yes.
The conditions are different, the way you get there are different, but that's the thing. Like, how far off is it, for example, and what takes you there, and that's what also was weird for me coming to Israel, because I was coming from Mexico, where like the last thing I thought was going into the military here.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm going to the military there. So I'm like, it's kind of like strange,
It's a weird jump.
but it's very different. Yeah.
So you aimless in Mexico, you find yourself in Europe. What the fuck are you doing in Europe? What's
Well,
up with your trip?
So I was, first of all, how I got there, right? So I was finishing high school, and I was in this French school. I actually didn't finish the French matriculation exam. Like, I didn't finish my French high school. I didn't get it.
Okay.
I fucked it up completely because I don't know any math. Like, I cannot multiply.
This is.
And now we say it's fine, right? But at the time, I felt like I was really.
You felt like you had like
I'm
three
very
eyes.
stupid, yeah.
You have like
And,
you were deformed or something.
But I still didn't like it. I didn't like the teachers. I didn't connect with them. I didn't have the time to like put all that effort on that shit. I was good in philosophy.
Yeah.
I was great in philosophy. I loved reading those books.
How about history?
I did like history, but I hated just remembering all those dates.
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
that's not, to me, it's what happened, not the date. Like, who
Yep.
cares if it was 1983 or 1982? Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
It's what happened, right? What were the motivations behind something? So I do care about that. I didn't do so well in history, and languages I was good at, sports, and that's pretty much it. But anyways,
It sounds like you are
I
perfect
went.
candidates for something. But so you go to Europe. It was
The
part
way
of
I
school.
got there was that I first of all I used to go out with my friends in Mexico, and I would come back home 2 weeks later. So I would like be like, "Hey, mom, I'm gonna stay with this guy," and then suddenly, just 2 weeks later, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I came back." So at one point, I was like, "Well, why am I even coming back after 2 weeks? Let me just stay out, right?"
Let's see if I could. How long?
So
it
I
could
stayed
take.
out for months, man. I was like out with friends, just living in someone's house and another friend's house, and just like living that bohemian life.
Surfing,
Bohemian.
couch surfing.
Because
Yeah.
I'm couch surfing, I'm playing guitar, I'm going to parties. Like I'm just, I was living off these people, yeah, like a parasite in a way, which I'm ashamed of. But at the time, I mean, I was just living the
Aimless.
moment, right?
Yeah, aimless.
And then my mother got really pissed at me, and she didn't talk to me anymore. So we were like, there's no relationship anymore for months.
It's quiet.
And then we started getting back, and she would like invite me for breakfast, right? So we would have like breakfast at like Vips or something like that.
Veeps. Yeah.
And eventually we started getting back into like a relationship, and then she came to me and she mentioned this trip to go to Israel, which is through like some program. It's called Birthright. So if you have any connection to Judaism, you can apply for this trip.
Wow.
And this trip, she tells me, you're going to sign up for this and you're going to go for free to Israel. She tells me, you're just going to be there for 10 days. Why don't you do it, right?
Yeah.
Israel, right? And I had gone to like these like Boy Scout groups, like when I was younger, not in high school, but like when I was like 12 years old, things like that, that were like Jewish groups where I learned a lot about Israel. And this was, some of those guys were going to be there. And so she was like, you should do this. First, I thought she was being scammed. Like
Yeah.
I told her, there's no way there's
No
a
way it's
free
gonna
trip
free trip to
somewhere.
Israel. Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
Just
Like, if there's
deposit-
one thing I know is nothing's free. I
Just
told her.
deposit $300 here, and then they'll all show up.
But it was, man. Like it really was like basically free. There was some sort of $300 deposit, but that's nothing for a 10-day trip. So so she said, okay, I'll go on this. And then I was sitting with this guy who's like telling me, after that, you can stay 6 months in Israel. You can work and study Hebrew in a kibbutz. So I told him, I'm gonna work and study. He said, no way.
Fuck that. You.
Fuck you. I'm
You're
not
trying
doing
to
that.
sell me. You lost.
Work
Me.
and study. I no. And
No.
she's like, no, don't worry. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be this. It's gonna be that. They convinced me. I was like, okay, I'll do that. But then I'm gonna spend 6 months in Europe, and I'll come back to Mexico. So that's how I got to Israel. That's how I landed.
You landed there in Israel.
I landed in Israel. I didn't know.
So you don't. Do you have the culture? The Hebrew?
Nothing.
You have nothing. You're just basically
I
a
have nothing.
kid
Yeah.
from Mexico.
No, I came from Mexico with my guitar. I had like a mullet and ridiculous clothes, like really ridiculous clothes. And I was with a group of Mexicans and Colombians. We were doing a 10-day trip all over Israel. Man, amazing. Like just,
What were you seeing? Or like
horsing around. Like you see, because Israel is a very small place, but it has so much to see, right? So the north is like kind of like forest in a way, and very green. There's like lakes and a few mountains and things like that. There's even like mountains with snow also. I mean, it's not fucking Switzerland, but there's something.
Yeah.
Then like the center, you have like the beach. You have like a little bit of hotter areas. And then if you go south, it's desert. And so you have the Dead Sea, the Judean desert, and
What are the people like to you there? Like, are you getting asked
so
questions?
strange, man. So strange because, I mean, it's very, very. I hate using this word, but it is very diverse. And the reason is that everyone's kind of like, you don't know, like one's white, one's dark, one's blonde, one's all of it, and they're all like Semites in a way. They're all like Arabic looking in a way, weird, exotic looking. The girls were like super hot, all of them. Like it was unbelievable. I'm like, what the hell? And it's a different culture, different like behaviors, everything. And we're just having fun, like going from place to place, like,
Are you being treated like an outsider, or are you being welcomed
you're
there?
being treated like a tourist, but I mean, we were not like, we didn't feel outsiders, like we were welcomed.
What was the
Yeah.
point of the trip? Like for them, were they showing you things?
The organization that organizes this is trying to bring you closer to like understanding
Judaism.
what Israel is and liking it in a way. Because, at the end of the day, you can't understand something until
You're there.
see it face to face, really. You can read all you want about it. It's just not going to make sense, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Did anything in those 10 days
Mhm.
like sticks out as like, oh shit, this is the moment that I'm like, maybe 10 days is going to be longer than 10 days.
I mean, I had a blast, but there were signs of things that um, I guess it took me many years to understand. But for example, one of the first things I noticed was it was beautiful. Like
Yeah.
you have, and also I went in the winter, and it feels winter. It's not like Mexico City winter.
Yeah.
It's like it felt winter really, and beautiful parks. Everything was clean. Well, good food, good places, good parties. Everything. I was like, wow, this place is great. And everyone's like very like strong in their character. Like it's not like you don't see people that you're like, wow, they're like really weak. No, you see like people with purpose.
Yeah.
That's how it looked, right, at that time. People are also rude. Like when you first meet Israelis, they're rude. For example, I was in a hotel, and there was this older couple coming in, and I grabbed the door, I hold it for them. They just walk by.
Yeah.
They don't say
anything.
thanks, nothing, right? Like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Okay. On the other hand, like I was in places where I would meet someone in a bus, it just starts talking to me, and they're like, "Hey, come over for dinner,"
Yeah.
or "You need this? Here it is." Like people that have like a very strong shield,
Yeah.
but inside they can be very warm, right? And that is true. I have to say, it is true. Obviously, not everybody's like that, but it's something that's particular over there. Another thing was that it's a place where, yeah, you gotta be sharp all the time. It's kind of like Mexico in that sense, because like everyone in a way is trying to fuck you over
Yeah.
with something. So for example,
everybody's for themselves.
yeah, like I was when I finished this 10-day trip, I went to Tel Aviv, and I was like, all right, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Tel Aviv, I'm gonna stay in this hostel. And in this hostel, apparently you can work, like they give you jobs that you can do. It doesn't cost a lot. And I'm in the beach, like, people surfing, and you see all these like girls, Israeli girls running with their surfboards and everything. And Tel Aviv was like amazing at the time. It was like, oh, unbelievable. So I'm going to this hostel, and I took a cab from where they dropped me off. And the cab has like this, the taximeter, right?
Yeah.
But it looks different than what I was used to.
Yeah.
And we're driving, and I tell this guy, what is that thing? He's like, no, that's a radio. And we get he overcharges me like really
Fucking
bad,
heck,
right?
yeah.
And I'm a kid, so I'm like, okay, well, that's I'm not gonna fight a taxi driver at that time.
At that
And
time, we can find them. We'll find them.
We
Find them
should.
later.
I mean, I went there, and then I was staying in this hostel, and yeah, they would have jobs like cleaning like a nightclub, and they would give you like 300 shekels a day. At that time, this is 2004. So, I mean, I don't know how much money that was then, but it was all right.
Yeah.
So I did that a couple times. Met really weird people in that hostel. Like there's like this 50-year-old British guy staying with us. Like it was just weird. And like you go to the supermarket, see a guy with like foaming like shave cream on him all day long. Every time I saw him, he had shaving cream on him. Just weird people.
Weird characters.
And then I was going to this kibbutz.
Yeah.
So I came to the kibbutz.
Can you explain what a kibbutz is to
Right,
people that haven't
so
ever?
it's a collective community, right?
Yeah.
And it's based off in the 60s in Israel. They developed this, or I guess from the 40s, even before, but it was based around agriculture, and it's kind of like a socialist commune.
Yeah, it's a commune. It's a collective commune type thing, and
Yeah.
farming is at the core of it.
So I went to the best one of them. It's called Magan Michael, and it's by the beach. Beautiful place, man. It's amazing. They have their own beach. They have the cafeteria where you eat, and you can see the beach. And you walk to the beach barefoot, and like it's just everything's clean, beautiful, plants, trees everywhere. Everyone's like nice, and so that's where I fell. And I was like, wow, this place is amazing. And then what I was going to do there is I was going to be in this like studying Hebrew. They have like a program where you study 4 hours a day, and then you work somewhere in the kibbutz another 4 hours a day, with all the industries they have there, which they have a factory that makes like toilets for like all over the world. They sell them. They have a semiconductor factory. They have agriculture. They had at the time agriculture, like bananas, the pitayas, you know, Colombian one with the spikes, avocados. They had everything. And so I was working the bananas at the time, which was also a great experience, right? Because I'm like a farmer, basically. Well, not a farmer. I'm an agricultural worker.
Yeah.
For a few hours a day.
Yeah, you're a fruit picker. You're a Mexican fruit picker.
Yeah.
You went really far though. Most of us just crossed the border here, just pick it right here in California. You went all the way over there.
I mean, that's what's weird, right, about my life. How I end up picking fruit over there.
Yeah, maybe they were fucking with you a little bit. I don't know.
The majority of fruit pickers over there are from Thailand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But they said we have Mexican here. I know where to put it.
We heard about you guys. Come on, prove yourself.
Yeah, let's put this hoodie on and this hat.
I had a lot of pressure, man, on me. I did all right, though. I did all right.
Is this where you start falling in love with the country?
I think so. Yeah, I think so because I mean, it was beautiful there, man. It's just a great life. Like,
are you
healthy, nice?
Are you getting a sense or a feeling of, oh, this is what it's about? This is what I.
Yeah, at the time.
Yeah.
I really, for many years, did see myself as like this was the kind of place that I wanted to be on.
Yeah, this is where I need to be right now, and also this makes sense to fight for this, maybe.
Yeah, I think this is something I hadn't thought of, but I am assuming that it started to
turn into something.
Yeah.
I mean, you're describing to me like a paradise.
It was amazing, man. Like you know, you imagine I'm in a group of 90 people from all over the world.
Yeah.
That includes females from all over the world. I mean, they had their own bar in the club. It was great, and beer is cheap, and good music, right? And everyone's friendly. And you go to the beach, you can just swim wherever you want. Everything's clean. They have like animals, plants, trees, good food.
When you say
I'm walking around barefoot with shorts all day long, like
when you say everything's clean and you're walking around barefoot, I don't think people from the U.S. understand what that means.
Yeah.
If you're from Mexico, walking barefoot on the beach might sometimes lead you into stepping on a needle or a glass in some places.
Yeah, definitely.
And the cities and some parts are dirty as far as like you wouldn't lay your bag down on the grounds of places because
and exactly.
And now you find yourself in a place where it's none of that is there. You're like, holy fuck,
nothing, man. I mean, and you know, people drive around in little golf carts there, and that's always a good sign.
Yeah,
a friend of mine told me if you see a place there's white people driving around in golf carts, that's where you need to buy a house.
Yeah, you need to figure that out. So you start falling in love with this place, and is the concept of going back home just shrinking as you go through this process?
Yeah, definitely.
Where does the military come into this?
And so I think, I mean, on the one hand, I've always been blessed to. I've never been scared of change.
Yeah.
Like I jump into them. Like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
Right?
You're not ready, but fuck it.
But on the other hand, I didn't just like say, yeah, I'm going to the military. Like I had a moment of thought, and I was discussing with you. My first thing was I met people who are in the military. I'm like, oh, cool. Like people go to the military.
Like how would you meet them? Were they just around?
So
walking around.
What I realized was that there was like kind of like a loop, kind of like a progress to being in that program of the studying and working. Many of those kids would stay in the kibbutz, keep working, and eventually they would go to the army. They would keep living in the kibbutz. So that was to me like, hey, that's progress. Like I can basically upgrade to that.
Okay. Right? So you saw, okay.
And I started to meet a lot of them from all over the world, like British guys, other Mexican people, a few of them, Colombians, a bunch of Colombians, Argentinians. There's so many Argentinians in Israel, you know, from all over the world. And also Israelis themselves. I started to meet them, and it felt to me again that they were revered because they were soldiers, right? And it felt to me again like, hey, this is cool, and these are people who are respected, and you know, hey, it's an upgrade for me, right? So I should do that. I should bring some value to myself now.
Is that the sense of the military there? I mean, there is like for the people there locally, is that like a hey, that's an important member of the community, that's a soldier?
I think it is in a way, it is. But maybe not as much as I thought back then. And it really depends to who, right?
Yeah.
And you see like nowadays everywhere, right? Like look at the US. I mean, there's people who Americans who hate their own soldiers.
Yeah, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
And you have Israelis who hate their own soldiers too. So I just, at the moment, I didn't know that.
yeah.
And because I was in that kibbutz, in the kibbutz, definitely it was revered, right?
It's like it's isolated. It's an
Yeah.
insulated space, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
So like,
So then there was that guy that I told you about. This guy, Mauri, who just sent me a message actually like a day ago, but he took me to meet one of his friends.
where's Maori from?
He's also from Mexico.
It's a Mauricio.
Yeah, Mauricio.
It's a you've random Mexican out there.
Yeah.
You meet who's a IDF
Yeah.
guy.
Well, I knew him from Mexico, but he was living in Israel at the time. One of the few people.
Yeah.
No, he didn't go to the IDF.
No,
But his roommate was in the IDF, and he was like this American guy. I don't remember his name at all. But anyway, so I was like one day with him. He's like, "Hey, this is my roommate. He's in the army." I'm like, "Oh, cool." He's like, he tells his friend, "Hey, tell him about what you do there." And so he tells me, "Yeah, I'm in the infantry. I'm in this unit, and I have like this. If you go in, you get like this machine gun called the Negev, and you get night vision. And you have a laser." And then you just point your laser, and that's where it shoots. I'm like, fuck, that's fucking awesome, man.
stormtrooper shit.
And I was like, and that's where like started to click. Like I might have to do this shit, right?
Yeah, like
But then, I'm not that stupid, right? I'm just gonna go in because I like machine guns.
yeah.
Because I'm signing off to die basically if I have to.
Do you have a concept of conflict in the area while you're trying to figure that out?
I know it's dangerous. I know there's like wars and things, but
Do you see any
they
of it?
seem happy.
Do you see any of it while you're there? Like no.
Not at that time. I didn't
it
really
was-
see
it was really
much,
calm.
no. Yeah. I would see soldiers
yeah.
and, you see like you get impressed, right? But I didn't really have a concept of violence back then to that extent. But I considered that's when I started considering, hey, maybe I should go to the army.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to make me something, right? It's going to turn me into a badass. It's going to make me this, it's going to make me that. Things that I need. I identified as something I needed because, again, I felt like I had no direction. And this was probably a school for me to build my own character, right? To become a man. That's how I saw it.
Yeah.
But I said, okay, that's great, but you need more. I think I was blessed to have a good mind in that sense because, and I still believe the same way today. Like you can go and try to do all these things, but in the end, you're signing off to die for something,
Yeah.
and you need a bigger reason than yourself. Like it needs to be something bigger. So from my background and what I knew about Israel and I knew about the Jewish people and the Holocaust and all of that, I said, you know what? I'm doing my part to make sure that something like that doesn't happen again.
Okay.
So then that's how I rationalize it in my head.
Nobody put that in
the
your
time.
head. Nobody put that in your head. This
No.
is all your rationalization from what
Well,
you're
it's my
seeing.
rationalization to thinking, hey, why would I sign up to be in a foreign army right now and put my life in danger just to be cool, right?
Yeah.
So
And-
I was like thinking, hey, this is not normal. Like, come on, man. Like, you know better than that. And then I started to look for excuses, and I found
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah. That's a good one.
But yeah,
That's a very good one. Also, you were in a place that is worth fighting for.
right. To me, it was worth fighting for. Yes, absolutely.
What's the process of getting in look like?
So it's a pain in the butt. It's a place with so much bureaucracy, man. Because at the end of the day, the IDF is run by kids. They're all kids. They're all 18-year-old kids. So the person who's recruiting you is an 18-year-old kid. They don't care. Like they just want to go off and go home and whatever.
Yeah.
So they're not getting paid. So it's like, hey, you didn't work out. Come back tomorrow. Or
Yeah.
like, I don't have the paper. You're gonna have to come back. Whatever. It's like
Yeah,
they don't
care.
answer the phone. Like they don't give two fucks.
Well,
Anyways, so it took a while. It took
Yeah.
like 6 months, and then eventually I got in. They're like, "All right, you're going in." I remember it was
What was it? So people that don't know, like, what is this like? It's like people might have images of American military boot camp where you get shaved and put on a bus and people scream at
well,
you.
yeah, you do get shaved, but you show up. My date was November 7th, 2004. So I show up.
2004.
2004.
That's where I started too.
Oh,
that's
yeah?
That's,
Cool.
that's my start too. So
It was a good year.
It's a fucked up year, but sure. You get there. What's the process like?
You show up to this base and they make you go through like a list of things, right? So first they actually do cut your hair. Like they shave your hair off. Yeah, like that.
Shit.
Kind of like that Full Metal Jacket movie. Great scene. And then they take a picture of you. They give you your card. They give you all sorts of shots. I have no fucking clue what they gave me. And
Nothing will give you cancer. Trust me, it's fine.
Of course
You're
not.
okay.
Yeah, it's all the CDC probably approved it. And then And then they give you documents that you sign, and they give you your uniform, which is like this disgusting rookie uniform that looks like shit, but you're so proud of it. You're like, oh, my boots, wow.
Yeah.
People get so excited about boots always at the beginning.
Yeah.
And boots fucking suck, man. Like, what's the deal with these
I don't
boots?
know,
Like,
man,
what's,
they just complete the fit.
yeah,
You know,
that's true.
that's all.
That's true. So you get your uniform, then they put you on a bus going to whatever unit or base you're going to next.
You just sign.
And
You
I was
get
going to
shuffled
this
off.
base. The Israeli army has this thing where one of the differences of the Israeli army is that it's an educational component of society. It's kind of like a melting pot of youth, and it spends a lot of money in education in the country. For
Yeah.
example, they have soldiers who are teachers for kids who don't have, I don't know, schools or don't have resources. They have soldiers who like help people, and like they have all this like educational and social component of the IDF. And so one of those bases is for immigrants like myself. And so in this base, they had programs where they had a 3-month program, where you would study Hebrew, or they had a 3-week program that was quick, where you would study Hebrew and kind of like get an intro to like infantry.
Okay.
That's the one I got into somehow. 'Cause I didn't really speak Hebrew well, but I think I was nice to the girl that was like deciding that, and she put me on that.
There you
Man, I was
go.
lucky, yeah. And so I got to this like course, and it's my first day in this base. And I remember the first thing they told me on that bus, on the way to that base, the sergeant of the bus, he told us, hey, it doesn't matter where you go, what matters is the people you're with. He told me that the first fucking thing they told me, man. And I
Yeah.
was like, I guess he's right, but I want a red beret and a pin, right? Like, I do care about that shit at that time. Anyway, so my first day, the feeling is this. Imagine, like, I don't speak the language. Like, speak some words. I can talk to you like a monkey, but I don't speak the language.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing what other people do. I always make you like, put all the gear that the useless shit that they give you in this base, like put it out and make sure you have it and organize it nicely. And then they tell us blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what the hell they told us. And they sent us off, and you have like 1 hour free a day to call someone that you care about and to take a shower. And so this is the first hour like that, my first day. I think they gave me like a card I could call home or something like that. They have one of those like payphones
Yeah.
with a card
with the
at the time.
Yeah.
And then I was going to take a shower, and I come to the shower, and there's a line, huge line.
Shit.
Everyone's naked like this. And I'm like, shit, right? This is November. And I hear someone saying, like, there's only cold water. I'm like, damn. Like, fuck, this is what I thought the army was going to be like.
Yeah.
Like everyday cold water, right? And I go and I take a cold shower, right? With everybody in November. I did it. And I was like, damn, man, that was rough. Like, I don't know if I can really pull this off. And it turns out like it's not like that. It was just that day they didn't have hot water.
Yeah. Fuck.
But so I did that, and then I was there 3 weeks. It wasn't too hard, but I came very motivated, so I was doing well. I was a good soldier. And then because I was an only child, you get to, it's harder to go into combat because they tell you, no, you need to have like a brother. Only childs don't go to combat. You need a permit from your parents. And I got my mom to sign. By the way, she didn't really want to sign at the beginning, but she did it. But that's in Spanish, right? So now I have to get it translated. I have to get it notarized.
Yep.
I have to send it to them, and they still didn't accept it because this bureaucracy, like, they don't fucking care.
Yeah.
But because I was good, the commander I had, she's like, no, come with me. And we went, after 3 weeks, we went back to the first base, the depot, like where they recruit you. And she took me to like some office of some general there. No, like some major. And he tells me, okay. She was like very nice to him. And he tells me, all right, what do you want? And I told him, I want Nahal or Magav, which is, Nahal was like one of the infantry units, which is the ones that most of the guys I knew were from there. And then Magav was the border police.
Yeah.
Which it's not the IDF, but it has like a contract where you can do your military service in the border police.
Yep.
Right? It's kind of like a militarized police. And somehow by coincidence, those are the 2 places I ended up serving in through my career. Somehow.
Wow. Yeah.
But he was like,
But you already had.
but when I told him,
you
when I told him Nahal or Magav, he's like, Magav?
Yeah.
No. I'm sending you to Nahal. I'm sending it to because Magav is like the rough-headed, like the blue collar. I guess that's probably my phone.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me just answer this.
No.
Anyways, so he sent me to this Nahal thing.
Yeah.
And I go to Nahal. I go to do my the basic training. And then, I knew I wanted to go as high as possible, but I didn't know anything about the Army at that time. Like, I didn't know what units they had. I didn't know there was Navy SEALs. I didn't even know that existed. Special Forces, I didn't know what that was. I just knew that there were like combat units of infantry. That's where I wanted to be.
That's what you want to go
Yeah.
to.
And so I go to this place, and then there's a selection. And I didn't know what the fuck that was. Nothing. So they're like making us like run around, like crawling and stuff like that. And I didn't understand really the language. And this is gonna sound so like it's gonna sound like I'm making it up, but this really happened. I see a kid, and I see him. He lifts his hand. He says something. Blah, blah, blah. They take him to the side, and then he comes back and is running with us again.
Okay.
So, and they had told us that we can only say one word. It's called "ani Polish," which means now I know it means I quit. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Back then,
I thought that kid had said that. Anyways, so I want to drink, and I'm number one, like one or two coming back, running, crawling, and then I'm like thirsty, and I see this kid. They gave him water, and they let him come back. So I'm like, fuck, I'll lose a couple points, whatever, but I need to drink. So I raise my hands, like, what do you want? I say, "Ani Polish." Like, huh? They're like, "Are you sure, right?
yeah.
Are you sure? Are you positive?" I'm like, "Yeah, "Ani Polish." All right, fine. And so they grab me, they take me to someone else, and they start like walking me away.
And you're like, wait.
I'm like, "Wait, what happened? I can't go back?" He's like, "No, that's it. You quit." Oh, fine, I quit.
Fuck.
I mean, I don't know if I would have said it. I can't like assure you that,
Yeah.
right? I did do it afterwards. I did that thing again when I came back, and I did pass it. But so they take me to this tent, right? The quitter's tent. And I'm like, "Why did you quit?" I'm like, "Well, I
didn't know the word.
I wanted to drink water."
Fuck.
They're like, "Well, we're sorry, man." Right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, fine. So I go to this infantry unit. At the beginning, I was worried. I'm like, "Damn, like it's so bad. Like I guess I could have done the other thing, right?"
Yeah.
But I had great people there, man. I had a really good commander there, and they're rare. They're rare.
What's the formation like? What are they forming you to be? Like, are you getting trained in?
Yeah, I think basic training in most places is just the transition from civilian to soldier in terms of the basic things, right? Like understanding that if you need to work without sleep, like that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah. What did you struggle with the most? Like just the language aspect of it?
The language was horrible, but I was it keeps you sharp
Yeah.
because you're all the time
You
like
see
paying
really
attention to
extra
everybody
attention
else.
to
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
And I think for me it was like I was a teenager that I would not wake up early, man. I was like just like man.
Yeah.
I can't go to school because I'm like I need to sleep, right?
Yeah.
Some shit like that.
And
And now it's like, hey, it's 5 a.m, and you
Wake the
you
fuck
maybe slept at 2 a.m, and you have to wake up now, right? And then it's cold, and you're like running and doing all this shit, and it's impressive, Mike, because you start learning in military training. I think it starts like opening up the boundaries of what you can do, right?
Yeah.
Which you didn't think you could do.
you hadn't pushed yourself to edges, and you start
Yeah.
finding those edges.
Yeah. I mean, that's I think for me it was a great moment because I came from basically failure.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get my high school. I was, trouble kid.
You couldn't complete anything.
I can't like achieve something. And now, hey, I'm a good soldier. Like I got rewards for those 2 courses. My basic training, I was the best one of my battalion. And I'm like, I can be good.
You find purpose there. A little, yeah.
You find purpose. You find that you can express yourself and get to good things, right? Which I hadn't had that opportunity before, or at least I didn't embrace it that way.
When you go through the training, when you go to your basic and you start getting assignment, basically,
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing things changing politically around you? Are you seeing the signs of a conflict coming? Are you
Yeah.
seeing more other
Well-
people that hey, I want to be like that guy?
At the beginning, I didn't see that stuff too much. I was just focused on, like really the task at hand. Like
Building.
I'm more of like, yeah, the like if I need to like do this, this with that machine gun, like I that's what I want to do. Like it's kind of like a sport, right?
Yeah.
To me. And-
Compartmentalizing and specializing.
Yeah,
just
I
working
guess.
on that.
So
Yeah.
I was just focused on that. But one of the things we did there, which was part of history, which is lost also, not a lot of people know about this. This was 2005, and so I finished training and all of that. And then at the time, the Prime Minister of Israel was Ariel Sharon. And the Gaza, right? So the area of Gaza was like the West Bank is today. Now, to explain that to those who don't know, it means that there wasn't a border like the one you have here next door.
Yeah.
It was open, and there were settlements of Jews and Palestinians living next to each other, fighting each other sometimes, but it was like intertwined. So that was life there in the Gaza Strip at that time. It wasn't all Palestinians back then.
Yeah.
It was mixed.
It was mixed, intertwined, and there was conflicts happening.
There was conflict, but then and there were soldiers stationed around the Gaza Strip to mitigate that, and they were working. Also, there's the Palestinian police was there. It was controlled, I think, probably by the Palestinian Authority. This is 2005, and Ariel Sharon decides that they're going to do the disengagement from Gaza. Okay, so I don't know if you're familiar with this, but
I'm not, but yeah, let's.
a lot of
let's
people
talk
don't
about
know
it.
this. A
Let's
lot
talk
of people
about
do
it.
not know this. So one of the political talking points of Israel is land for peace or no land for peace.
Yeah,
right?
land for peace or no land for peace. That's
Yeah.
like the.
So then it's associated usually to the left, but the politicians say, hey, I'm going to give this land for peace so that we have peace because peace is more important, right? And then Ariel Sharon went for that. And what he did is he actually used the army, the border police, the police to go into the Gaza Strip, remove the Israeli people living there, remove them from their homes. And then they built a border.
The border.
Okay?
Yeah.
And they gave all that land to the Palestinians, which is now the Gaza Strip. It's only Palestinians. No Israeli goes there.
Israelis were basically taken from their homes and resettled or rebuilt.
Yeah, and I was through that. Like I saw the images of people like,
yeah,
holding on to each
their
other,
stuff.
and the policemen coming and like taking them out, arresting them. The army was also part of it. We were tasked to like secure an area or something like that. I mean, I didn't do any of that, but
But I was there. You were seeing the experience of people being ripped from their homes.
Yeah, they were ripped from their homes. They were putting in caravan homes, like and
So
I don't know how much money they gave.
So you're there. You're very fairly new to this experiment, which is Israel. How does that make you feel being part of that?
I mean, I was at the time, I thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like I thought at the time, I was like, well, this is what the government designed. Ariel Sharon is, he liberated Jerusalem in the fucking 40s, man. Like he was a guy, he's a badass, that guy. And like he was, because I'll tell you another thing. And you're as a Mexican, I grew up thinking that the government is always corrupt no matter what.
Yeah.
Like everyone's corrupt. Everyone does not have.
That's the baseline assumption.
But when I got to Israel, it seemed to me like politicians did want the interest of the people. Like when I got there, I was like, wow, this guy's a patriot.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. I was like, wow, that's one of the things that made me like that country too. Like I thought I felt they genuinely cared about the place.
Yeah.
So I thought at the time that, I also didn't get into it too much. I don't know at that time a lot.
Yeah.
I was like, this is my task. And I'm like, hey, these people, like if they're being asked to be removed, well, I get it. I wouldn't want to be removed from it, but I also wouldn't want to live in Gaza. So I'm like, I mean, it is what it is. I didn't have really an opinion. There were soldiers that didn't want to do it, which I understood it at the time.
Did you see them? Like,
yeah, I met a lot of people like that.
Would they? I mean, what was a reprimand? Like, basically, would they?
Yeah, you would get punished. Some of them went to jail for that because they didn't want to remove people.
And what was the view of the rest of you? Well, some of these guys were being carted off to jail because they didn't want to rip people from their houses.
Well, I just didn't want to go to jail. I didn't want that. I didn't want that stuff on my record. Yeah.
So you just everybody wanted to just fucking conform and figure that out.
Yeah.
How some of these guys were being carted off.
Yeah. And by the way, I noticed something there, which it's consistent everywhere in history, is that politicians, who do they make do these things? The police, right? The military sometimes. And then they take the blame for it. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So who's the worst evil? Or the police? They removed us from our house.
You realize you're the villain in the story.
Yeah. You're the
villain.
You're the punching bag, right? For the government.
Yeah.
Like, we set the policy, you do it, and it's your fault. You're the bad guy.
So this is the service you do, the initial service.
Yeah, so that was my national service, and we went to places like in the West Bank, also on the border with Lebanon. But I mean, I got some stuff, but it wasn't that crazy, and it was short.
Yeah.
Because then in 2006, like January, I was basically done with it. I even though I asked to stay, but again, bureaucracy didn't work out. Like I signed a paper. I'm like, I want to stay longer. They're like,
leave.
okay. And they're like, oh, by the way, you're getting out. Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool. So I'll just go. And then
you left for a bit. Now, what were you doing that time?
I was trying to get I was trying to make my mom happy. So she said, "Oh, you have to study. You have to do your degree." Blah blah blah.
You're still staying there trying to figure out your
Yeah.
degree.
So then I was like, "Hey, I went to the military, so now I can study here. I'm Israeli now, and so I wanted to get into college in Jerusalem, university."
Yeah.
And by the way, at that time, I met this girl Natalie Portman, the actress.
Yeah. Yeah.
I met her. She was studying there at that time. And I was
Okay.
with a friend of mine who was studying with her, and I met her and everything. And
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman. I mean, what the hell, right?
Wow.
But
yeah.
anyway, so I'm trying to get into.
I'd say it's cool. I'd say it's cool.
It was cool at the time.
Yeah.
Now I guess I don't really care anymore. But
you're going through the university. What are you studying? Like what's
I
your
was going to study.
What was your?
Oh yeah, well, I don't remember. I think I was going to study diplomacy or something like that.
Yeah.
And
You're trying to figure out.
But the thing is, like, to get into university, I had to do a year of preparation.
Okay. So they have
which was like a course of like getting prepared to go to university, right?
For a year.
I'm like, come on, man, just let me do it, right? And then at that time, I needed my high school diploma, so I called my school.
I
didn't have the French high school diploma.
You didn't finish. Yeah.
But I called my school and I told them, hey, this is the deal. I want to go to university now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, you might qualify for the Mexican high school diploma. So I told them, okay, great. And then they just sent me that, and I have that. Yeah. I did qualify for that somehow. So I got that. And then I could go to university.
Yeah.
But at that time, that's when the war came off in 2006.
It's 2006.
Yeah.
Can you describe the atmosphere there? It's
Man, it was crazy because it's like
you were civilian life. Do you start feeling that like, oh, people are freaked out? What's on the news?
Yeah.
What's going on the news?
Well, the news is one thing, but like you feel everything there. Like you hear rockets and you hear bombs, and you hear the alarms. Like they have these alarms, like it starts sounding, and you know that there's like a bombing that's going to happen.
But you're not a soldier anymore. You don't
I'm
have.
not a soldier. I was working in the kibbutz. I was working in the plastic factory and at this like store. And I'm like, every day you would wake up and the news had pictures of people who died the day before, soldiers or civilians,
from
right?
missiles landing,
or in combat in Lebanon.
Lebanon.
And so that's when, like, one morning,
are you hearing anything from the guys that you left in the service?
I'm talking to them. I'm trying to get into reserves.
Yeah, and are they saying like, dude, it's crazy, don't come back?
Well, at that time,
conversations like?
The thing is that you couldn't really talk to people who were in the front because they didn't have their phones.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to talk to someone else to try to get into reserves, because when I got out, because of the program I was in, I didn't have a reserves unit. So I'm trying to go through bureaucracy basically in the space of a month, which is the time of that war, and it didn't work out.
To get back into a fight.
Yeah, and I mean, thinking back, maybe I should have just showed up somewhere and grabbed a gun.
Yeah.
If that's what I wanted. But I didn't do that. And then one morning I wake up and I see like a picture of a friend of mine who went with me into the military. He just stayed. His document did go through. And I'm like, damn. Like, I started to feel like I was, culpable. Like, it's like, why wasn't I there with him?
Yeah.
Like, he went, he did what he was supposed to do. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I escaped.
Yeah.
I feel like I escaped something. Like
guilty,
right? And I'm like, damn it, no, I can't let this happen. And then I realized that I was trying to get away from this, but like, where was the only place where I'd been successful so far in my life? It's just the military. So why wouldn't I just keep doing that? What do I want to study? I hate school.
Yeah, what the fuck are you doing?
Why would I go there, right? Why would I try to get these jobs in these companies? Like, I don't like this stuff.
For your mom, not for you.
Right.
That's exactly what you're doing.
So then somehow I started the process, and it took another 6 months, and I got back into the military there. Okay, I got back into the military, and they sent me back to my base where I did basic training, and I went to do the selection now for the recon, the special forces recon that they have at the battalion.
So you went to a selection process for a special a reconnaissance unit.
So it's a reconnaissance unit, and they have they have 3 detachments. One of them is the kind of like a force recon type of thing, because it has like you do like a counter terrorism course, for like responding to active shooters and hostage rescues stuff, and like more like elaborate raids, I would say. So I went to do that selection. the one I had tried to do before, which I just basically sabotaged myself.
Yeah, you want some water.
And this time I didn't sabotage myself. I did very well, you know, and so I was lucky enough that I knew what I was doing, right?
Yeah.
And you realize, like, hey, there were kids there that couldn't put the shirt on, like they put it backwards.
Yeah.
So
You were ready.
It was obviously easier for me because I had some background.
You were ready.
Yeah. And then I started training, and it was a different type of
The train. What's the training in this unit like? This is a reconnaissance unit. This anti-terror, counter-terrorism is in it.
But also it was also the concept and the context of time, because this was right after the Lebanon War, which was a punch in the face to the Israeli army.
Yeah.
Like it was a wake-up call in many, many ways. For instance, a lot of soldiers ended up without water, without food for days, because they just couldn't carry all that stuff with them.
So they forgot how to fight a war far.
Right. You know, exactly. Like carrying stuff for many, many miles with a lot of weight was not something the Israeli army was good at. I don't even think they're good at it nowadays too much, but they really made that a point.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of, like all of my commanders had been there and they were scarred.
Yeah.
They were really scarred of seeing their friends like die, you know, with like limbs flying over from anti-tank rockets and shit like that. So they were really bitter at that time.
Yeah.
And so the training was horrible. Man.
Extra
brutal. And the Israeli army doesn't really have any supervision in terms of like safety. Like it's very, very bad. I'm sure here it's worse.
It's one of the aspects that is hard to explain to Americans. Like when they come at me with stories about the army, you know, oh, they used to make us sweep up water in the rain. Well, they used to punch me in the face. They used to hit me with river canes across the back, you know.
Absolutely, man.
But
absolutely.
so they are.
It's even worse here, probably.
It's worse than retarded, a little bit more retarded. But like they are basically coming off of an experience that showed the holes in the training. And the lack of.
So they weren't fucking around. Like they had motivation to really make you.
You show up there.
They
with
really
all the
wanted to
motivation
make
on your side, and they legit are making every single effort so you don't fuck up.
Everything was like, and that's the right way to do it, but it was very intense because they had like no heart, man. Like they were just coming from a war where they saw their best friends die. Maybe a year ago, maybe 6 months ago. So imagine now you're trying to train these soldiers.
These young kids are coming in there.
And you're thinking that they're going to see the same thing. So you're really being extra tough, right?
When you say extra tough, what is the corrective? What are they doing?
Well, for example, the worst thing we had was the Krav Maga that we had. Like the defensive tactics training.
It is basically an excuse for them to beat the shit out of you.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was just abuse. I didn't learn anything, man. It was just abuse. I did learn something, but
I mean, you
no techniques.
You probably learned something about yourself going through it.
Exactly.
But it's so Krav Maga. The Krav Maga aspect is basically the combatives component of the training they're doing. They'll put you in there, and hey, this is how we're gonna. So
the training that we had was a big majority of it was navigating, right, with weight on your back.
Yeah, land nav,
and you get to like 40% of your weight or more, and you're basically doing like 20, 25 kilometers a night. At some point. And it's tough, but hey, if you're a good athlete and all of that, like you're gonna make it. If you're a good navigator, like for me, it was hard because I didn't know the land. We're navigating a country where some of these kids, they knew these places already.
Yeah,
like, oh, I know
they
this
were
place.
born there, but you're there. You're like,
I was like, what the fuck, man? I don't know where the hell I am.
Yeah.
Another part of it was like the combat, right? Like the firearms. So I went through like this, like the combat, the counter terror school, and you're learning all this, like, you know, CQB stuff and like urban warfare stuff, which is cool. I like that. And then the other aspect of it is the defensive tactics. The recon aspect we did at the beginning, kind of like, you know, like in jeeps and things and like observation, shit like that. But the defensive tactics, they do it once a week at least. And it's always like the worst day of the week. Sometimes it's when we're coming back from like a land navigation.
And your legs are
like
dead.
The whole day.
Your legs are jelly.
Well, the whole week. You were the whole week like navigate every night, 25 kilometers, eating like a can of tuna a day. And you're like sleeping in the bus like this, like, and then the Krav Maga guy comes into the bus and starts choking one, like, and you wake up like, it's like 7 minutes, go, Krav Maga, go. And you have to wake everybody up and go with all this shit that you have to do to start the Krav Maga. And then the whole session is 4 hours, and they're just abusing you.
Yeah.
He's like, you start like standing in like a formation like this,
Yeah.
and he goes around, he looks at you, boom, punches you in the stomach, right? Goes around, looks at you, boom, just kicks you. Push-up position, the ribs, just kicking you in the ribs all the time. They make you like crawl with someone in your back, like running to each other, just like crashing to each other.
Yeah.
No, like nothing on you.
Yeah.
Um,
They're basically just breaking you down.
it's just
physically.
breaking you down. Yeah. And I had an instructor that he was fucking evil at the time. Like to me, it was like this guy, I could not understand how he can be that evil.
Yeah. Okay.
I later on learned that he was an actor. Like he actually went in to be an actor. That was his profession. And he did a great job, man. I'll tell you that. Because he was like,
Hannibal Lecter.
he would come, for example, to this room where we were doing Krav Maga. There was like a plastic closet with like some protectors that we never used for some reason. And he's like, I want you to be like aggressive, right? Look at this. And he starts running towards the fucking closet and just crashes into it, destroys it. Destroys the plastic closet with his head. And we're like, what the hell, this guy, right? Or like we had another guy, this Ethiopian guy, and he would like, he's telling us, no, be aggressive. And he actually grabbed someone and he beat him. And he like beat his nipple off somehow. And he went to jail for that. But they were fucking crazy, these two. And you know, that was like every week I was scared of that session because it was horrible. And we knew it was usually on Thursdays.
Yeah.
And you had those butterflies in your stomach all day long, like, you know, doing whatever they made you do. You knew it was coming.
What did you learn about yourself going through that fucking abuse?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, first of all, I learned that I could be aggressive and that I am aggressive in some ways.
Yeah.
But I also learned that if I listen to myself too much, I can be weak. Like I had times where like I felt like it was hard for me. I didn't realize it was hard for everybody else too. I was maybe a little too selfish in that sense sometimes.
Yeah.
And but I think what I learned from it is also I learned the combat spirit of not giving up. Right, you don't give up.
Yeah, you don't give up.
But the most of what I learned came afterwards because when I got out of the military, I hated defensive tactics, and I was like, I can't let this happen, man. And then I went into martial arts. And I try to like correct my experience
That you had.
and dominate that aspect in the
That's
sense
amazing.
that it would be like it wouldn't be something that scares me. It would be something that I would like thrive in.
You're going through this process of getting ready for battle, basically
Yeah.
war, and all these people that are training you are some of them are shell shocked, some of them are nipple biting maniacs who are there, really passionate. Probably though they're trying to figure out a way to instill something in you that they thought might have been missing on their end. I guess it sounds like they were trying to overcompensate for an insecurity as far as a whole fighting force.
Especially the instructors in this unit. Like, here's the thing that, you know, in the IDF, and I'm sure in every other army, but the best instruction is only in tier 1. Like, if you're not tier 1, you're not getting the best instructors. Where I was, it wasn't the worst instructors because they had been soldiers, but they were like oftentimes, for example, like our combative instructors, like they got out of combat. They weren't good enough to be in like these teams. And so they're like, well, go be an instructor, right?
So it's a punishment.
It's kind of like a punishment. It's like, oh, well, you're not good for this, but you certainly are good for teaching this, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why. And then in like the infantry, you get taught by people who have no idea what the fuck they're teaching you. Like absolutely none. The IDF has, for infantry, they have a unit that teaches firearms, and they've never been combat soldiers. It's mostly girls who come in and they want to be firearms instructors. And they go through this course, they give them a book, they learn the book by heart, and then they teach you firearms. And they're going to teach you how to go to combat right somewhere. That's in the infantry.
Wow.
In the unit I was in, you get taught by people who at least are part of like the unit, and they were in some sort of
active
capacity. And then in tier 1 unit, that's when you get like, you know, people who are experts at what they do.
Yeah.
For the most part. And so that's, you know, that's just how it was. Like the Krav Maga in Sayeret Matkal, which is like the highest unit, is not the way it was.
It's
for
not.
me.
It's not. It was
And
not.
it's in a way it's more professional because they teach them more, but it's also easier in a way because they don't abuse them.
Yeah.
They don't abuse them like that.
Yeah.
And I know that because when I was an instructor at the Federal Agent School, like these units come there to learn Krav Maga. And I taught many teams of Matkal and Shayetet, and man, the minute I turned the heat up a little bit, they didn't handle it so well. Especially the Matkal kids. Yeah.
You go through this process of training. What is it like when you get, like, what are you going to be tasked with when you get out?
So the unit that I was in, the classic mission for it is having there's two types, right? So one type is you have like intelligence from the military intelligence tells you, hey, we need to get this guy from this house in this village, whatever. And then the way this unit operates is we'll land navigate for, I don't know, 7 kilometers, 5 kilometers through like rural areas, get to the outskirts of the town, and then get into the village kind of like quietly, right? So we'll wear like ponchos, they call it. They call it poncho over there.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, with like camouflage of like rocks and shit like that. And you start like moving very slowly. And if there's dogs, like, you'll try to like quiet them down. And then you get to the house or the area where you're gonna get this guy, and then you surround it and you get the guy, and then you get picked up by cars sometimes, or you have to walk somewhere, out of town. So there's places you can't drive in.
This is insanely dangerous.
Oh yeah.
Retardedly dangerous work to
and especially at that time, because there's waves in everything, right? So this was 2008 when I was in this unit, and it was the end of the second Intifada, what they call it. And so we had IEDs in these towns. Like
they were expecting you.
Yeah, I had one of the commanders who had one of the majors. He went on an IED, man. Like, it completely like deformed him. He survived.
Yeah.
So there's IEDs in corners, like under trash piles, right? And for the cars. There's the shooting, like people are armed all the time shooting at us with rifles and whatnot.
Are you seeing any proficiency on their end, or are they just random people with firearms shooting back at you, or are they setting up a counter observation to try and find
I don't
you?
think they're like to the Israeli soldier. The Palestinian fighters are usually not very well trained, I would say. Maybe Hamas now has like more a little bit of more high-end units, some of them, out of Gaza particularly. But the top adversary for Israelis is always the Hezbollah, the Lebanese.
The Lebanese.
They're the ones that have the most training.
And they're in that environment, basically.
So they weren't in the West Bank. That's not the environment I was on. They were in Lebanon, in the southern border of Lebanon, and the engagements you have with them are very different, because those will include mortars from their side.
Yeah.
Artillery from their side. Coordinated attacks to kidnap soldiers, and they've done this many times. They've kidnapped Israeli soldiers in the past. So it is different, but it was dangerous nonetheless. And at the time, so that's one of the missions: navigating, infiltrating the town. Another one which I liked because it fucking went well, is that we do the land nav, we infiltrate the town, but we don't have a person that we're looking for. It's more like we're going to do an urban ambush, they call it.
Yeah.
And so this is, 4 a.m, and the villages in the West Bank, they're, have you heard the term Kasbah?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a very, very closed urban area. And so we choose like certain corners that we're going to be on for hours. And then the rules of engagement are that if you see someone armed, then you just shoot. So
you're basically waiting for opportunity.
Yeah. So then we're hiding in corners quietly, right? And like many times I was like in a corner where like there's like a window, I can see the TV of like some family that are here, and I'm just waiting for someone to come on this other side, right?
What are you armed with?
I was a Negev. I got that machine gun that this guy told me about. So
suppressed.
It's not suppressed. It's kind of like the mini. I think it's the M249 here.
Yeah.
In the US. Anyways, so it's one of those. I have night vision. I have a laser on it, and it's kind of like shortened in a way, so I can carry it on my shoulder, but it's heavy.
Yeah,
it has like a roll of like 150 rounds at least, and the rest I have on me.
Yeah.
So I had that, and
just waiting.
Yeah, just waiting. Yeah.
And the TV. Somebody watching somebody on there, you're there, in your poncho, just waiting. And is it communications? Is imagine like quiet, like it's just waiting,
very quiet. So it's just like for example, let's say you get like something's like, hey, there is a group coming like your way.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then you don't respond to that. You just respond with like clicks on your radio, right? Because you have it like on your ear, and you're like, okay, I got it, like 2 clicks, right?
Yeah.
And then they'll tell you, for example, green means they're coming close, or red, they're going away. Then the right way of doing it would be, didn't happen that way in the times I was there, but the right way for it to happen would be like, hey, we have these people, right? We're looking at them. And then let's say there's 4 people or 3 people by like group that we're on. So it'd be like the 3 of us like choose a target and then like count down and fire at the same time.
Yeah.
Like that would be the way to do it correctly.
Beautifully done. And
yeah, it wasn't done like that, but we were aware that that was the right way to do it. And then, I mean, something I didn't even know why, but so we would, you shoot down like, say a group and it happened a couple times. And then for some reason, we're supposed to make sure that they're dead by throwing a grenade.
Okay.
Like where they're down.
That's your double tap, a grenade where the area.
Because we weren't going to go all the way there. So it's just like the grenade. And I thought that was a great mission because these places were scary. And, you're like making it your own basically at night.
Yeah.
Nobody knows you're there. You did your job well. Like you navigated, you infiltrated the town like unnoticed. And you're surprising the enemy there and the adversary.
In enemy territory.
Yeah. So I thought that was cool. And it turns out that nowadays nobody does that.
That is, well, I imagine because it's very risky. It's
risky. Yeah, it was risky, yeah.
It's a very risky thing. So you go from creeping around in the night somewhere in enemy territory, confirming kills by throwing a grenade in the middle of it, which is beautiful. I love that.
It works.
I mean, I can imagine you can play dead, but then somebody throws a fucking grenade your way. You're probably gonna think, fuck.
There is a meme about that, no? It's like it's something like that. Yeah,
there's probably a meme, dude. But throwing a grenade to confirm it's a beautiful.
I didn't
thing.
make it up.
I understand, and it is just to me like there's no way you can play possum when a grenade lands at you.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is a very dangerous job. You tell me that when you talk to unit members of that unit now, they look at you like,
yeah, they don't do that stuff.
You're doing some cowboy
like,
crazy.
What? Some didn't even believe me. They're like, no,
there's no way
that's what we did. They're like, well, we don't do that now.
Yeah,
you guys are pussies.
or this is I get some of that sometimes when I talk to people that are working in the same field that I used to work in, or you tell them like, yeah, we used to just borrow cars that we would use for work. What? Like steal them? No, I mean they were already stolen. I guess as we move forward in time,
things change,
and the lack of cell phones, the lack of drone technology, all of these things, body cameras. Like for some of the friends that I used to work with, they wear body cameras now, so they can't get away with half of the shit.
But it also helps you, the body camera.
Yeah,
like there's so many advantages to it.
Yeah. But like it basically changed. My experience is never going to be able to compare to them because of the lack of that technology and the amount of bullshit it allows to do.
Yeah,
so you go through this process of working there and in this unit. It doesn't last. You move on.
Yeah.
What happened that caused you to move on from this group?
I don't know why. It's always like like my ass is on fire or something. I'm moving around, but
you felt like it was enough time there.
Yeah, I felt like it was.
How long was that?
I was only there for like 2 years.
But you probably 2 very spicy years, I imagine.
Yeah, it was very spicy. The training, the ops, like it was spicy, man, and it was a great experience. I mean, So I got out of that, and it was the crisis, like the economic crisis, 2009, and I wanted to go to study, but I also wanted to continue this path. So I kind of like got accepted to be a federal agent in the Israeli airport.
Oh, okay. So
Ben Gurion Airport.
For people that don't understand what that means, so if the airports in the airport there's a police force that runs at a federal police force.
There is. The Israeli airport, at that time, there was only one international airport called Ben Gurion Airport, near Tel Aviv. Inside of the airport, the security, the ones that are in charge of it, is kind of like the FBI of Israel. Okay. They're in charge of the security inside of the airport.
Okay.
Outside is Israel's national police is in charge of the security because of the terrorism aspect, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of the airports that are most targeted in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine
yeah.
that the amount of stuff that is attempted to go in and out of that airport is pretty.
Yeah. And so what that meant is I went through this course in the school. There's a federal law enforcement training in Israel that's called Arazim, which means pines.
Yeah.
And then I go to this course, which was like a 3-month course, 4-month course, and you're doing 5 hours of shooting,
Yeah.
3 hours of Krav Maga, and 1 hour of classroom every day for 3 months.
That's wild.
And you're sleeping in a hotel, by the way. They put you in a hotel. They give you great food, amazing food, best food I've ever had in a base. And and then it's very, very professional. Like coming from the IDF, where I was like, I was like, there was a point where I remember I had like a sartén, how do you say it? Like a pan.
Yeah, pan.
And I was like cooking eggs with like a wrench, like just like going like this with a wrench and like, those crackers, like the military crackers. Like that's what I would eat.
Good enough.
Good enough. And now I'm in this place where like, you're getting paid for it, for real. It's a serious job. Everyone's an adult.
Dress
After
what?
the
You have to
army.
dress.
You have to dress nicely, right? You have to cut your hair and look the part, right? And so I started that job. I worked at the airport it's a plain clothes unit. It's not undercover. It's plain clothes. They don't teach you how to be undercover. They just teach you to dress like you're traveling.
You go into the airport.
And if there's a dude that shows up with an AK-47, you take him out within 10 seconds, right? Like they want you to make sure you end it within a couple seconds. So I was in that unit for about 3 years. Part of it also has a marksmanship, like a sharpshooter thing.
Yeah, you're basically shooting at it. If you are responding to something at an airport, you have to know where your rounds are going. So there's probably a lot of effort.
Because it's crowds. It's crowd security. I don't know if that's a concept, but I see it as a concept.
Yeah, it's crowd security, and also firearms are involved, and you have to respond immediately. So I imagine the pressure and the training to be able to put rounds into where they need to be is high. And so are you getting put it through just a lot of shooting?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of shooting. I mean,
now when you talk about so you're coming from a combat unit, and you're already putting rounds. Yeah, you've already put rounds out there. And now what's the difference now? Now it's a more now they're teaching you how to refine that. Now they're teaching you just how to use the pistol gets introduced into it. Yeah, because I mean the IDF is terrible at teaching pistol. Like the IDF, they suck at shooting pistol. Okay, the IDF, like very bad. So so they didn't really teach us like how to shoot a handgun. Yeah, rifle, like you shoot it and you learn and you can be a good shooter, but the handgun is like it's like it fell from like another universe, and they're like, what the fuck do we do with this handgun? Well, just carry it, just be careful with it, right? But this school of Arazim, like they really mostly do handguns. Yeah, the pistol. So for Israel, that's probably the highest level of handgun. And so how are you being trained to carry? Like we've like I've been exposed. Yeah. I've been exposed to some of the Israeli training out here. Yeah, and different conditions of carry. Yeah. So the thing is that. This is a direction, but when I was a federal agent there, everybody was carrying condition one in the barrel. When you were in the chamber. When you were where? When I was there in that as a federal agent. Okay, everybody was carrying one in the chamber. One in the chamber for the airport, air marshals, dignitary protection. All of them had one in the chamber. And was this discussed with you? Like we carry one in the chamber, or this is how it was? Yeah. And did they say why? They just say. Well, it's better. 100% better. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to defend condition 3 as something that's better. It might be convenient for the organization for some reasons. Like, for example, the IDF cannot carry condition 1 because they don't train enough to carry condition. Like they're like a liability. Yeah. So I had a guy in the room next to me in the IDF who negligent discharge into like a closet, right? Horsing around with the gun. What gun was this? In the IDF at that time, we had SIG 6 hour, the 228, I think, or something like that. Yeah. But you're in the federal forces. But in the federal forces, it was a Glock. So I had a Glock 19. A Glock 19. Yeah. The C. They had the Gen 3, the C. Okay. That's a model that was made specifically. Well, that's what they say. Okay, I don't know. It was made specifically for the Israeli, for that the federal, the secret. Well, I guess like the FBI of it. Okay. Yeah. It's called the security agency. So it's a 19C. Yeah. So that means it has a compensator on top. The trigger is different, and it comes with like the night sights. Yeah. Okay. So you have this Glock 19 C.
Oh yeah, and like a bigger mag, the mag will release. Yeah.
So this is your gun. Now your new task is basically to wait.
Yeah.
To wait.
Yeah.
How does that feel? Like you're not so going from like I've been there, man.
Yeah.
Being in an operational unit where you're going there to start shit or to put you down.
Yeah.
But now you're not.
You're in an ambush forever. Yeah.
You're just. How does that feel? What does that do to your?
I mean, I think there's a great lesson from it, which is how you keep your mind busy, right? Like for example, like when I was in a situation like that, and when I think about my own security, I keep my mind busy thinking, what would happen if something happens here? If this happens, what do I do? If this happens, what do I do? And you go through that in your mind all the time. That keeps you sharp.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you fall into complacency, which is like the biggest virus in that.
That's interesting.
Niche.
That's interesting. So as you're working and waiting for some of these things, you're basically doing.
I'm imagining it.
Your hypotheticals are basically.
For example, in the airport, I would be in this plainclothes unit. So I would be where people come out. So I'm like standing, I don't know, with a sign, like waiting for whatever, Senor Rodriguez, right? and so I'm looking at the entrance. Also, I have to position myself in a good place. And I'm thinking, if someone came right now and started just shooting, like, what would I do? To the level, like, hey, I would draw my gun. He's down. I'm gonna move. I'm gonna look to this place. I'm gonna stand over there. What do I say on the radio? What I tell people to do. Like all of it, you go through like the sequence of events, and that gives you more confidence.
Makes
if you
quicker.
do have to do it, makes it quicker because you're not gonna like hesitate, I guess, as much. And it also keeps your mind sharp. You're not like distracted so much by other things, and you're like on the task. Yeah. But you can't do that forever, right? So, and I think they understood that because our job was, it's an hour and a half that you have to do like that, 45 minutes that you had rest. And again, an hour and a half, 45, an hour and a half, 45.
They understand that
so it's a big break.
Yeah.
But you need it. If you're going to be focused, you really need it.
Or else you'll fall into complacency.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to do that 8 hours, like with
no way.
Like
there's
how,
no way.
do you,
there's just no way.
You can't do that, yeah.
What are the type of threats you're seeing here?
Well, in 1970 something, some Japanese guy from the Red Army or something like that landed in Israel in that airport. It was called the Lod Airport. And he, at that time, you could fly with whatever you wanted, basically. So when he picks up his bag, he just takes out a AK-47, starts shooting at all the people in the airport, and killed like 20 people or something. So that's when they created this unit. And so the threats you're looking at is
things coming,
that someone would come to the airport either from within Israel or from the West Bank, make it to the fact they want to do an active shooter attack on the crowds of the airport. That's the threat.
That's the threat.
That's the one that I'm responding to.
Yeah.
So I'm not asking people, what they have in their bags or things like that. It's part of it.
Yeah.
Because if they find something, then I have to go to them and react to that. But the main threat is the crowd.
Somebody showing up with a firearm and just starting to shoot in this crowded, very busy, very visual and impactful airport. I mean, if you do an attack on that airport, it'll send a message that is going to ripple worldwide, basically.
It also weakens Israel because it was the only international airport. So imagine you can't have flights, really.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
It blocks the economy.
I never thought about that, but so so you're there basically in a state of constant tension is what I want to, it's like being a spring if you're there. I mean, when I did my time doing security for a governor, I remember having this whole aspect of I didn't feel fulfilled in my day because nothing happened.
Well, yeah.
But then I'm like, wait, that's a good thing. Nothing happened.
It is a good thing. And that's, I think, one of the main issues with security work, that you don't see the fruit of your work.
No, nothing happened.
That's the difference from where you were saying, when I go and do the job, I either got the guy or I didn't, right? But when I'm doing security, I don't know if one of those guys showed up, he saw me and was like, no, man, I can't do this, and walked out.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that happened.
Yeah.
Right? It might have happened. Who knows? But that's the problem with security. You don't see the results of your work, and you're constantly in an ambush.
Is this weighing on you while you're there? Or is it just, or are you just on autopilot figuring things out?
it is weighing in a way a little bit, maybe. Like obviously you want more action, you want more things, but it keeps you, because it's kind of like they're selling you something. They're telling you, hey, it might happen. You're here, right? And you're going to respond to that. So you're like, of course. I was a student at the same time. And so, you're busy with other stuff. And the training, I like the training. I always liked like the shooting and the punching and the kicking and all of that. So
Was this your first introduction into like high level shooting as far as a pistol?
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, today to me, I got some foundations there that I should completely different today. And I think I've advanced so much more from there, but it was a good foundation in terms
Yeah.
of like combat shooting and compared to what I saw before and what I've seen in other units in Israel, it was really high level. Yeah.
Awesome. What made that end?
So I finished studying my college, like the BA, and I mean, I wanted to move on to something a little more, I guess, more active, right? A little more.
Yeah.
And one of the options I got, like from all the places I applied to, and I don't know, some of them didn't work out, blah blah. And so one of the places that did get back to me was the Dignitary Protection Unit of the IDF.
Okay.
So I ended up going back to the IDF, and then I was a bodyguard for the chief of staff, generals, delegations going abroad, working together with the security agencies, Dignitary Protection Unit. And that was a cool job because the dignitary, the chief of staff is very, very diverse. His like schedule is very, very like varied. So you could be in the morning in the Gaza Strip, like looking over like in a border. In the afternoon, you're like having lunch, I don't know, in somewhere, and then in the evening you're in Lebanon, basically in like South Lebanon doing something else. Like it's very, very like
Dynamic.
super dynamic. He doesn't go to an office and sit all day. Like he's like all the time
working,
doing something somewhere else, like traveling abroad, coming back, secret meetings in fucking other countries.
What were you not ready for with this job? I mean, imagine it's moving somebody in vehicles and flying and clothing changing and like,
I would change clothes like 3 times a day at least. We had everything on the back, and it's like, okay, a suit. All right, you're done with that. A uniform, because this is like an official IDF something. You're done with the uniform. Okay, civilian clothing. He runs in the morning, so the sports clothing, everything in the back of the car, and you're just like constantly
wardrobe changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what I wasn't ready for was that I was coming from a very structured work environment where, like, I have my shift.
This is a shift. This is exactly the hours you work. Yeah.
And now I'm in a work where, like, they're telling me, hey, you start at 9.
And maybe.
But then at 12 at night, I get a call, hey, he just decided he's going to take his daughter to the train station. So you need to show up at 6.
Yep.
And that's just how this work is. And I didn't like that too much because I'll tell you what, that's what you were saying. Like, I don't see the fruits of my work. Like, what do you mean he wants to bring his daughter to the fucking train station? Like, fuck you. I want to come at that. I don't see the value in that so much because it's not happening, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of like frustrated me a little bit.
It's a lot. I mean, executive protection. I worked for a governor for a bit, and I can't do another one. I legit. But when I finished with that family and like I was thanked and everything.
Yeah.
In my mind, I said I can't do this again. It's basically living around somebody else's life.
Yeah.
And it is a lot.
Yeah, you're right.
So you're moving around, learning how to kind of basically kind of interact with some of this in this environment of being in a high level executive protection. It is.
Well, it also teaches you. I think the most valuable aspect of executive protection is the advanced work.
Yeah.
I think that's the most interesting thing because
was that what you gravitated towards the most? Like, within so like within executive protection, there's specialized driving people.
Right.
Like there's people that are great to drive.
Yeah.
There's people that are great for like close protection. There are people that are good in that first ring, second ring.
Right.
You have CAT people who are basically counter assault people.
So I did almost all of that, but I was not a driver, even though I did driving courses. But my wife says I still drive like shit. I don't know. And she's constantly nagging about it. But anyways, I'm not a great driver. And I wasn't a driver. I did, like, I was the primary at some point. But the way that it works in that unit is you some days you're doing advanced work, some days you're primary. And so it depends, right? Eventually, when I was an instructor in the school for the federal agents, then I was part of the CAT team, like the counter assault team, which I thought that was cool. But it's kind of like a SWAT team that is castrated.
It's
Because
waiting.
it's waiting.
It's
yeah.
waiting.
So that also kind of sucks. But you know, the gear and all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked with the Secret Service CAT guys, like fucking like cool guys, you know, cool stuff. And I was like, wow, like I'm basically the CAT team of Israel. Wow. And we would go to events and people were like, wow, those guys, wow. You know, all the gear, like so amazing. But
You're waiting.
it's frustrating for me because you're waiting. You're not fucking doing anything.
Yeah.
Right?
I think for me, advanced work was some of the stuff that I liked the most.
Yeah, me too.
Just going somewhere, figuring out the best route there.
Exactly. You have to use your head. That's what's so great about it.
And you can see the fruits of it because when your VIP gets there, nothing goes wrong.
Right. And it works smooth, right?
Yeah.
And
or like a question. You know, like I remember I had this list of things that people never thought about when they would do an advance that I would start gathering. Like, when you discover something that other people hadn't asked about. So I remember my first time I went somewhere outside of the confines of the state. I went somewhere and I figured out that I probably should I should probably know where if a small Pomeranian got sick. I should probably know where to take him.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked, hey, if I had
that is a good question.
A Pomeranian that gets sick and I had to take him somewhere, where would you take him? Oh, let me call somebody. Yeah. And we had that. First trip, fine. Second trip, fine. Third trip, dog gets sick. Yeah. And I'm like, are you psychic? Like, how did you know? And I think that moment and some moments like that when you solve issues of that nature just by foresight and looking at these things.
I think that's how you survive in that niche of work.
Yeah.
Of executive protection, it's that.
Yeah.
Because that gives you something, right? And then you're like you want to keep working and doing your job. Otherwise, it just wears you off.
If you are a person that thinks this is beneath me or this is outside of the confines of what I do, I'm not going to hold that. I'm not going to think about a Pomeranian.
Right.
But then you're like, hey, the family's going to get exposed if I don't take care of this for them or if this isn't kind of planned out.
Yeah. It's well, especially in the civilian sector. It's a lot more like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Where I was, at the end of the day, I didn't have to carry anything because that's just like that was the rule. Is like, hey, like I'm actually
in the culture of bodyguards out there must be completely different. I mean, as far as hey, these guys are here to do a service, and I've been in that service maybe, so the culture may be a bit more respectful. But there's places where people will hand you things and stuff like that. And,
well, it depends on the VIP, right?
Yeah.
Like we had some guys who were nicer than others. For example, like the guy that I was mostly with, Benny Gantz, was the chief of staff at the time. He's a very nice guy. You know, he'll never like ask you to do something that
outside of your function.
His wife was a little less nice sometimes. I mean, she's not. It's not that she's not nice, but she's kind of like annoying. And just being in the car and listening to those things like Benny, and I'm like, Jesus, how does he do it, man? How does he fucking do it? I don't know.
It's amazing.
And I mean, Bibi, he's a nice dude. He's a very smart guy. Ehud Barak was like a jerk. And this other guy, Boogie Alon, great guy too. There's a couple of good people. A couple of people who were closer than others. Like this other guy, Gabi Ashkenazi, was the chief of staff before Benny Gantz. He's like a bro. Like he's like, come into my house, bro. Just sit down, bro. What do you guys want? Like everything. He's like, he's there for you. Like he cares about you, right?
Yeah. What is having a VIP like that do for your work?
Well, it makes it much better, right? Because you connect. You feel like, hey, yeah, I like this guy, and I care about him, right?
Yeah.
When it's like a cold guy, you're kind of like just like making sure you don't fuck up, right? That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm asking this for people out there that might have bodyguards at some point.
Right.
Legit.
I think the problem is that in the civilian sector, it's way more complicated.
Yeah.
Because when you work for the government as a bodyguard, like you're there because the government determined that this person needs to be protected.
Yep.
So he's not necessarily your boss exactly.
Yeah.
But when you're in the civilian sector, like, hey, you might bring up something to protect him and he doesn't like it. You're fired, man.
Yeah.
Like, fuck that.
I think I was working for the government doing this type of job, and I remember having these moments of like, who's really in charge,
Yeah.
I think one of the best lessons that I got from one of the people that formed me is, number one, part of our job as a professional executive protection agent is to educate our clients. So if you say that you can't hold something, you better come up with a legit
explain why, yeah.
dissertation of why,
And it needs to make sense to
deliver
someone. Yeah.
and deliver it in such a way where it isn't like gonna get you fired.
Yeah. And also, who's the client, right? If you're trying to explain it to some little girl, like, good luck, man. Like,
yeah, no. So like, for me, I realized quickly that with my family that I was working with, the wife,
Mhm.
she was in charge. So I had to
They have to explain it to her.
let's explain to her.
Okay, yeah. Well,
So
that's the work. Like, yeah, that's where you're using your mind. I mean, I think that's where you get the most skills out of that job. You
Yeah.
know, for solving things just afterwards.
It stops for you. You figure out what opportunity do you see? Like, why does it end? That executive protection side of it. Like, where do you go from there?
So I was doing that, and then I got offered to be an instructor at the school of the the federal agency in Israel,
Yeah.
Federal Law Enforcement Training Center of Israel. It's called the Pines, right? The Arazim, and I got offered to be a.
How does that feel? Do you feel anything about being offered
Yeah,
to be
because
the instructor?
you always look up to those guys. Like when I was in the course, those guys were like gods to us, right? They're like, wow, man, like they sit down, the girls like eating around
who
them.
calls you for this? Are you in the running? Is it an invitation thing? Like, what is that like?
Well, I asked someone that I knew that worked there, and then he's like, I'm gonna talk to someone. Then they called me, and they're like, yeah, I think you would be good for this, and they like told me.
They
yes,
looked
basically
at all.
we
They
want you
looked
there.
at all your shit probably.
Yeah, I mean, because you're training there, right? So
Yeah.
they see if you're good or not. But I wasn't. I mean, having been an instructor there, I see the students. I see who I could identify as an instructor, and I don't know if I was one of those. I think I came like a little bit like from the side a little bit.
Yeah.
Some people are just like they're like obvious, like we want
Polished,
them, right?
well worked.
And I don't know. I guess it always take me a little longer, but I get there.
Yeah.
And so I got offered to do that, but I was going to start as a Krav Maga instructor, defensive tactics, combatives. And at this time, I'd been doing martial arts also for a while. I was doing Thai boxing and all of that. So I was into it and I liked it. And I'd even done some like amateur fights and stuff.
But you weren't a Krav Maga level 5 instructor from some of these. Oh, you were.
I'm still not, man. But I don't even like. It doesn't even like.
I want to. I want like because we live in a day and age where people talk out of their asses sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
When you say Krav Maga, you mean combatives.
Yeah, because for example, the Krav Maga in the Israeli army and the Israeli defense forces is not the Krav Maga in the civilian world, really.
Yeah.
Like it's not that curriculum, which all these like things that I see people teach, like Retzev or something like that. I'm like, I never did any of that. It was like when we had to box, we boxed. When we had to like wrestle, we wrestled.
You studied with specialized instructors. Hey, I'm gonna study wrestling. I'm gonna study boxing. I'm gonna study kickboxing.
Yeah, like when it came to that, we had our special instructors.
And you said you were a martial artist by this. You've been training with different peoples, with different people in different disciplines. Like, what were you training?
I was training. Thai boxing is the first one I got into. I don't know why I got into this Thai boxing, and I had
kicking people is fun. That's why.
Yeah, it's fun, man. It was nice, and I went through a process. I really learned a lot. That's how I started to get back into. Well, I started to get into like martial arts because when I got out of the IDF, it was all abused, this Krav Maga. So I was like, what the fuck, right?
You don't want any of that.
I didn't want any of that, but then I was like, no, you know what? I'm gonna get into it, and I'm gonna make it my own. So I went and I did that, and I did some boxing. I like the Dutch style kickboxing a lot. And then when I got into this place, the first thing they told me is like, hey, so we have a boxing class on Tuesdays, on mornings, come to this boxing class. And I'm not hired yet as an instructor.
Okay.
They told me, start coming to these classes. So I show up, and the first thing I see is like this really like skinny guy, maybe a little less tall than me. I'm like, piece of cake, right? And then we start the boxing class. They bring like a professional boxer instructor who teaches like outside. He comes every Tuesday in the morning to teach us the class, right? And I'm like boxing guy. I'm like, this guy's so fucking quick, so strong. I'm at my 95%, like just like angry at him already. Like I don't fucking care if he knocks me out. I'm just working. And he's like at his 80% or something.
Just,
We finished the class. I'm like, what's your name? He's like, oh, that's Matmon. And it turns out he had been like a youth, like world champion, kickboxer or whatever. It's fucking like virtuoso, okay? Like the way he manages distance, the way he is efficient with his striking. Like even though he weighs probably half of what I weigh, he's so much more powerful than I am. And I was lucky that the guys that I was with, on the one hand, I was lucky that there was so much talent around me that I learned from.
Yeah.
Like jiu-jitsu black belts, world champion kickboxers, like all of this. But to my detriment, like I got my ass kicked by them like all the time. So it was like the feeling of like, and you're a martial artist there, like you're an instructor, right? So we have like a little area where you're like sparring every day. Just like
Yeah.
when you don't have a class, oh, let's go spar.
Yeah.
So we're like sparring each other, and then you finish, you're walking all like wet, like sweaty, like you just came out of the pool. Your face is all red from the gloves. You have like red marks in your legs from the kicks. You go take a shower with your clothes on, take it off, put your polo shirt on, go back to teach a class, like, hey guys, now you guys are gonna do this, right? Like, and sometimes in some courses, like if I'm following a course, like I don't know, like an Air Marshal's course, I do the whole like course within 3 months. I'm teaching them, I'm seeing them grow, making them better. And at the end, I'm sparring with them, like one by one, right? And they're not great, right? They're not hard.
Yeah.
But it's 20 people sparring you one after another. And I have to be in shape. I have to show that I'm a fucking badass.
Yeah.
And I have to like allow some pain sometimes, right? I have to like pain them a little without injuring them, just so they're like, oh no, Bernardo is a fucking badass, man. It's like this. Even though like maybe I'm not really that badass, but you have to do it, right?
Yeah. You have to make that mask as an instructor.
So that was a great job. I think I learned a lot. Safety wise, this place is very safe. So different from the IDF experience that I had. Like safety is paramount there. They're like obsessive about safety.
Headgear.
I mean, they don't even like any injury is like, what happened, how did it happen?
We need to figure out what happened. Yeah.
And I was able to work as an air marshal there as well, like part-time, which I think in security, that's the best job.
Air marshal.
From that realm of like dignitary protection, air marshal, everything has to do with security. If you're gonna be in an ambush, then at least be in an ambush, with nice food, nice hotels, air.
Business class.
Yeah.
That sounds like a solid.
I mean, it was fantastic, that thing, and I was in the CAT team, counter assault team. Yeah, and I was there for like 4 years, a little more maybe. Learned a lot, man. Yeah.
Did that come back into you, the tiredness? Like, we need to fucking figure something out again.
Yeah.
Did that come back to visit you?
It did. I was like, well, this is good, but I'm like telling people what to do all day long, And I'm not an overtly arrogant guy, because I don't think I'm the best at everything, at nothing basically. So I'm like, I'm telling these guys who some of them have done like, there's always a student that you're like, you could learn from him so much.
Yeah.
And I'm like just telling them what to do. I'm still young. I thought, I can do something. Hey, I want to go out, man. I want to do something else, right? I want to go back to the street. And I had a terrible boss at the time. He was a fucking asshole. I hated him. But he knew the commander of this unit, Yamas, from the border police.
Okay. Can you describe what Yamas does?
Yeah. And so Yamas is one of the special operations group of the border police. And it's a unit that the specialty of the unit is undercover tactics, law enforcement intelligence, to get to high-risk areas and capture high-value targets.
This is infiltration shit. This is social engineering at its
In the unit, you have people who really, their job is just to do surveillance at a very high level. Why I say high level is because it's a different language. A different type of dressing up, different areas.
You have to become the part.
You have to become the part.
And this is, you were in a reconnaissance unit. This is another level beyond that.
It's a totally different level. And by the way, I was not one of those surveillance guys. Like that's not my specialty.
Yeah.
I was part of like the SWAT element of the unit.
So you go into this,
and the rest teams.
You that's what you want to do now.
But this unit, funny enough, is that throughout the years, I always felt something that was pulling me towards that unit.
You mentioned it before in the conversation, like you saw it.
I saw it. Well, I remember when I was back in the IDF, there was like times where we were doing security for this unit. They were like doing something like, hey, Yamas is like in this place, and we're like ready if something happens to go help them, right?
Okay.
I remember seeing guys from MS, and then they always looked to me like, wow, like these guys are fucking, alpha, like for real, bro. And then I met like a commander. I remember like years before, I was like, hey, I want to go to this unit. And he was like, yeah, I'll try to help you, but it didn't work out. Then I tried out for the unit one time when I was in dignitary protection, and they're like, oh, well, in the end, we could just bring 2 people, and I wasn't one of them. And now I had like an interview with the commander of the unit. And because I had more to offer now, like I was coming from the best school in the country.
You weren't ready.
As an instructor.
You weren't ready. You weren't ready until that
I wasn't ready until that moment. Yeah, you're right.
Ready.
So then he's like, yeah, man, I need an instructor like you to, you're going to be in the teams, but you're going to be an instructor. You're going to bring the level up. And eventually, you can make your way into the teaching, what do you call it, the training department, right? And I was like, yeah, man. Well, first of all, I want to be in the teams, I told him. Like, this is what I came here to do. Eventually, if I get into the training department, that's great. But I didn't come here to be an instructor. I will be a part-time instructor. I'll be a part of the teams. And this guy, man, he's one of the toughest commanders, but good, that I've had.
When you say tough, like as
like
far
he's
as
gone through some serious shit, man. Like this is when you meet people who have like bullet holes in them, like that they've been through some stuff. Like is never scared of anything. Like just the calmness of like how he describes things, how he reacts to things. But it can also turn sour sometimes. Like some people, they're just like to a point where like they never smile or they're never like, it can go far.
Getting to that place in life as a man, you sacrifice some shit.
Yeah.
I imagine he was not the happiest man in the world.
He didn't appear to be the happiest man in the world. He did have some smiles here and there. He was a very smart guy, super patriot, real patriot, good commander, good leader. He told me one thing I'll never forget. Like, we were like bitching one day. Everyone's complaining over us, right? Like, why don't we have this? Why don't we use these missions now? Why don't we go that? Like, everyone's always complaining everywhere, right? Especially in Israel. So we were like, someone complained in our team, and he sat down with us and told us, listen, guys, I'm going to tell you the truth. There is no unit in Israel, nowhere, ever, where people wake up with their dick hard every morning to go to work. It just does not happen. Nowhere, not Sayed Matkal, not fucking Yamam, nowhere people wake up with a hard on
because they're here.
Because they're going to work. Yeah. Like some units better than others, but everyone's got something to complain about, right? And we're like, okay, yeah. That night we go out. And I had like a crazy mission. We were coming. It wasn't in the night. It was during the day, just like an hour after that. We went to it's called a refugee camp. It's basically like a caspa or like a favela.
How do you get ready for that?
Well, this mission was. This one was very particular because this is a Palestinian refugee camp where we are, the Israeli police is responsible for some aspect of security in that camp. And so we were called to capture a guy who's a known like drug dealer, arms smuggler in the camp, who is suspected to have murdered another Palestinian in the camp from a rival gang. Now, I'm assuming, that his gang, the gang that was the victim gang, right, probably cooperating with the police or something like that, and they send us to get this guy. So this guy lives in like a place that lives in the favelas, like from Brazil. Like you can't even drive a car inside of it.
Yeah,
it's just like very narrow.
Everything built up.
Buildings and there's.
What's everything made out of? Tarp, wood, whatever.
It's concrete. No, it's concrete, but like the roofs will be like aluminum. I don't know what is made from, and I can show you some videos also I have of that specific mission. Came out. It's on YouTube. Sorry. So
you're there. You're dressing the part.
So we show up and we have an element that's undercover, and they're gonna come and contain. So they start walking down because it's like on the downhill.
Yeah.
They start walking down the stairs to try to contain the street where this guy is on a house. You can't really contain the house because it's like they're all together, but they're containing the street from the back and the front. I was sitting in an undercover vehicle as part of the SWAT element that was going to be the breaching team, and to capture this guy. And the radio didn't function. What happened was that these guys, they were made like these people, like imagine, like they had like little kids in the corner, like look, anybody who's not from the area, they're like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
And these guys are good, man. Like there's not like right away they see them and they're like, "Oh, the police is here." No, like they try to talk to them because they're like, "Who are you guys?"
Yeah.
And what happens is that they actually thought that it was the rival gang coming to
all they know was strangers.
Revenge. Yeah,
strangers. All they know the strangers.
But then a firefight starts with them. Shit. And this guy was ready. Like him and his brother were like shooting guns, and his father had a bucket full of like Molotov cocktails, just ready. And they're on like a high ground. Like they have a balcony, and then there's like the parking lot, and there's like another little roof of like the door, and the hallway is very, very narrow, like of the street. So what they start doing is from the door, they start shooting at these guys on the sides. These guys have to take cover and hide. And they're trying to call us on the radio, like, hey guys, like that's it, like come out of the car, right? We can't hear anything. And eventually we just start hearing shots, like we're like, well, I guess we need to go, right? So we come out of the car, start running down. I just hear like gunshots, and then I get to this corner where like they're telling me they're shooting here. And I get to the corner, and this is, I always talk about this, but I think it's a good message. I have a choice in the corner. Do I go to the right where they're shooting at because my friends are there, or do I stay back and be like, hold on?
Yeah.
And I went to the corner. I went around. Of course I did, right? But, I think that's part of like what people need to think of when they're trying to go into these professions. Like, at the end of the day, it's unnatural to run towards gunfire.
Yep.
It's unnatural. So you're signing up to do that, in my opinion. You're signing up to do that. Some people don't
go against
don't think they have to,
instincts. But to go against that instinct. Yeah.
So and I went around that corner, and then there's like shooting like right next to my head in the wall, and my friends like shooting back, Molotov cocktails falling. I thought they were IEDs, man. Like this is how close it was to me, and they were also like exploding. The glass was like right, like exploding from the Molotov cocktail. Everything's on fire. I can't get any closer, can't move back, can't move forward. And then, I'm like looking at the roofs because I think this guy's going to come from like above because it was, that's just the way it was there.
Yeah, everything's like this, crowded.
Yeah, and I was a breacher, so I'm eventually someone's like, hey, breach this door so we can go up to this house. My breaching kit didn't work.
What was your breaching kit?
I have like this hydraulic kit. It's,
it's like a spreader.
Yeah, with the spreader. So I'm going, it's not working.
Check.
So my friend behind me, and there's still gunfire around us. I'm like, dude, you have to like fix it. He has to like press a button. I have to like, basically, like you're trying to like cheat on like Mortal Kombat. Or
You're trying mashing all the buttons. Yeah.
So anyways, eventually we get it to work. By that time, there was like a group of guys from like the undercover guys who were like pinned in a building in front. And they managed to go upstairs with like a micro Uzi, and they're the ones who like basically ended it. Okay. And so it was, I think like for the time that we'd been going for like a couple months where there's like nothing and everybody was kind of like that. And I'm telling you, man, that the next day I woke up with a hard on, 100%. My dick was like
you remember the words?
Like the arm of a construction worker, como brazo de albañil. That's how it was. And I was like, you know what? He was right, man. It's not every day like
not
that.
Every day you got shit happen.
But fuck, man, let's do it. What are we doing today?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's just, and that's the feeling I wanted from a unit like that. That's what because eventually, we didn't get into this a lot, but there's a lot of politics about like, hey, Israel, this and that. And eventually there was a point where I was not part of the politics anymore.
Yeah.
Like I felt I did not feel committed to it. But then I asked myself, well, why would I do this, right? Why do I want to do this?
Yeah, would I do this weird shit if I'm not convinced about it?
And then what I got back from my head is that I've always been a protector somehow in my personality. Like if I don't care if you're a Palestinian or an Israeli, if someone wants to do you harm and it's unjust, then I want to protect you.
Yeah.
And hey, that mission was like we came to arrest someone who killed a Palestinian, right? And there's other times and places where I've seen it happen where it wasn't, one-sided, right?
It wasn't. You weren't working for Israeli specific interests. You were working for.
I was doing my character, doing what I think is good to do. And yes, eventually I did leave, right? And I did there's things I don't like, but
how long?
I found that.
How long did you stay in that unit?
In this unit, I was like 3.5 years. Yeah. And there's some cool missions we used to do because there's, for example, as an arrest team, there's like these low-level missions that we used to do every day, which is not like a terrorism unit.
Yeah.
Like a terrorism assignment, but it would be, for example, like, not kids, but like teenagers or young adults throwing Molotov cocktails at a police car in a village that police just can't go in there. There's no way of stopping them because it's like favelas, right? You can't like drive and like run after them or anything like that.
They'll hide.
So then they'll hide us in places, and then we basically pose as people from the village and then get to them, and then other forces would come, and there's always a lot of fucking physical violence on that,
Yeah.
all the time,
all the
because
time.
they're always resisting arrest basically because they
Yeah.
don't want to be arrested.
And
so
also
there's
the
always
top,
fighting,
and also people around them are probably gonna probably
everyone
try to
tries
rip them.
to throw things at you, so it's dangerous. And that one, in that one, I did do many times like an arrest team. Like I would come out of a car or a hiding place, walk, I don't know, 300 yards or whatever it takes, pretending I'm just in the town and get someone, right? So I have to like fold them down and basically arrest them really quickly, or maybe throw them in the back of a car, and drive off, which is fun. That shit's fun.
Minivan.
Yeah.
Minivan. Minivans are great because they have a sliding door.
Yeah, it's sliding door. We put him in the back of the car, offer him a drink and everything. So,
Yeah, one dude in the back of the car always has to have two dudes next to him, right? That's the whole thing. At the holding cell, just grab him down,
Yeah.
put him down.
Well, I mean, by the time he's in the car, he can't really do much anymore.
Nah.
But we do have someone grabbing him into the car. So that's one type of unit. Another type of missions,
Snatch and grab stuff.
like
Yeah.
this stuff like I described before. Then there's also like terrorism calls. So, for instance, there's someone on his way to do something. It can be suicide bombing. It can be just a stabbing attack. It can be a shooting attack. And it's finding this person using, technology and stuff, and then getting there using like undercover tactics, cars, vehicles, just people doing surveillance, making sure we know where this guy is, and then showing up and snatching him out of there. But oftentimes this is in villages when they're in the West Bank. These are places that you cannot be there like with military vehicles or with police vehicles.
Yeah.
It has to be very quick because the entire village wants to kill you. Like they all want to kill you. I mean, one time we got pinned down in the morning in this place, and we grabbed this guy. We're coming out. Suddenly, I just hear gunfire, and I'm like, we can't move. We're in the hallway, like the size of this table. The entire breaching team with the guy, and there's like raining like objects from the top of the building we're on. Gunfire hitting the wall, and we're like, where the fuck will we go? Like, we can't move. Can't even see who's shooting. We can't even see who's throwing stuff. And you have to shoot your way out of the village, man. You can't like hang around. Nobody can come get you. The cars can't even get there. So it's a little complicated sometimes. There's other missions where some of like the surveillance guys that can play roles and work with like an agency to kind of like gather evidence, and then at the day that you need to arrest the suspect, then use these tactics to get to them. So I'm very, very happy that I was in that unit. It was pretty much everything I expected. And I was lucky enough to be with good people and good commanders and do some cool stuff.
Yeah. You said 3 years. What's a normal time frame for people to be in that unit?
I mean, this unit is more professional unit. So there are people that have been 20 years, 15 years,
It's like
12
it's a career
years.
path for them.
So relatively, the amount of time that I was there is nothing.
Yeah.
But there's also people like you can, because the border police accepts like soldiers, conscripts, you could do your like mandatory service there of like 2 years or something like that and leave. So I did more than that, but I was also coming from like a career. Like I was overall, I'd been in the armed forces then by, I don't know, like 13 years or 12 years. So I wasn't like, a young guy. And I was an instructor there as well. And one of the things I brought to that unit, which I'm sure they probably already forgot about it, but I started to bring aspects of jiu-jitsu, of law enforcement, like they have here in America, to that unit. And I'm sure 100% there's nobody else in Israeli National Police who had done that there. And, I did the Gracie course, and when I educated myself with other people, and I brought that to the unit, and it was interesting because they really needed it. So I developed that there.
To rip people out of cars, to grab them, hold them down, to put them in
but also
cars.
just your own survival, because a lot of the arrests that they do, like they're hand-to-hand combat with someone in a very high-risk scenario. So, how do you like protect yourself? How do you make someone or how do you put handcuffs on someone faster than what the general population of police, right, all over the world do, which could take many minutes and 10 people trying to put handcuffs on
if somebody
someone.
doesn't want to be in handcuffs,
Well, yeah,
and
it's
a
very hard,
resisting,
right?
Yeah.
But so if you have good techniques for that, you can minimize the time, you can minimize the amount of people you need, and you need people to be providing security in this case. Like, it's not like
So
people stay away from it. Like, they'll try to grab the guy from you. They'll try to kill you while you're doing this shit. So it's,
you basically infused your experience into that unit before.
I had some of it. I think I could have done much more, but at least a little bit of it I did put into it. I think some of those guys were grateful for it. I think a lot of them were grateful for it. And I could have done more, but that's just, you're always going to feel like you can do more. Yeah.
It was your time. You leave. And
so at that time, I had been, there was a lot of things that I didn't like so much about living in Israel anymore. Okay, it's complicated, but there was a lot of things. I'd been coming to the US for many years, also seeing my friends working here, teaching, doing this, doing that, Like, I have a friend who, he's working, like, every time I would see him during the weeks, like, I'm working. And he was at home, like, posting on Facebook about his trainings, like, whatever. Like, that's your work. Okay. And then the weekend he teaches and, it makes money. Oh, great. It's not bad, man.
Yeah.
Right? Like, good life, everything. So I got a call from a friend of mine that I met, actually. I met him online, but then we had friends in common. He came to Israel, met up. And he has a company here in Austin, Texas. And so he gave me a call. He's like, hey, dude, like, I'm merging with a bigger company, and I can bring you if you want. You want to be an instructor here? You want to work with me? Let's make it happen. At the same time, I got offered also to be the main, like, combatives instructor for one of the Yamas units. And it's something that I would have loved to do. So it was like, shit, what do I do now, right? And then COVID came at that time as well.
Yeah.
And COVID in Israel was fucking horrible. And I was, like, very disappointed about a lot of things. And I wanted a better lifestyle, a better life quality. And I've always been a believer in the American dream. And, as much as it can sound funny. And I was like, well, this is what I need to do, man. Like, this is the right timing. So I took it. Yeah.
And so you, like, the whole aspect of the American dream, and you're an immigrant like I am. And also somebody that came out of Mexico and went to fight a war somewhere.
Yeah.
What is that American dream that you describe? For, like, if people don't understand what we
It's in stages.
It's
stage number 1, pickup truck, garage gym. I did that. Check. Okay. And guns. But
that's interesting. Like, a lot of immigrants to the U.S. that they mention, the ability to have material wealth with you, material.
Yeah.
So, like, hey, a truck.
Yeah.
And guns.
Well, I think guns, not just because I like guns, obviously I do, but it's kind of like, I like the fact that the Constitution respects me as a human and thinks that I should have the right to defend myself.
Yes.
I hate that other countries don't do that. Mexico, I absolutely hate that because it's just ridiculous.
It's for me, and this is something I always said, the ability to defend yourself and have the means and ability to maintain that capability. So a gun and the ability to train with that gun should be an internationally human protected right.
I think it is a human right. That's my opinion. We're going to talk about defining human rights. Well, this is the one I want to define.
I think if whatever that means, it could be a gun, it could be a sword, it could be a knife, it could be a machete, it could be whatever. But whatever the threat in that environment is, if the government isn't doing anything about it, if there's no guarantees.
I mean, think about it. A place like Canada, like, they put in the law that you have a duty to retreat.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm not even able to. The government is instructing me that I need to retreat from a situation that is potentially dangerous to my family or to myself. It makes no sense to me. Yeah. It just makes no sense to me.
And people that have usually come from conflict zones and know what that lack of a right is are usually the ones coming to the U.S. and telling these fuckers, you should be fighting for this.
I wish that I'd had that right in Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom, how many times she's been robbed at gunpoint. My grandparents, they were hijacked one time. I mean, they're lucky they just had like 3,000 pesos in their bank account, man, because they like broke them back home. They're like, all right, guys, bye. But how do you respond to that stuff? People, I know that, they break into your house. all the things that can happen in a house. I don't even want to bring it up.
Now, where does being Mexican fall in line with your whole trip that you just basically took us on? Your Mexicanism, you know. Do
Yeah.
you consider yourself a Mexican pride? So
Yeah,
for
yeah.
me,
Mhm.
my process has been this. It was a long time to figure out that the parts of Mexico that I don't like are the government and its bullshit and the politics.
Yeah.
But the people itself, the culture around it, I mean, there's a lot of beautiful things around it.
Yeah.
But there's also, you know, systemic corruption and there's other things of it that I might not like that much. But I came to peace with the fact that I'm from here,
Yeah.
that the reason why I'm who I am and I went through all the shit that I went through is probably because I'm from
Yeah.
Mexico and my parents showed me some shit about being Mexican and how to figure things out when nobody else was there to kind of figure them out for me. Now, for you, what is it? Where does that
Well,
lie?
I think it was an interesting journey because I grew up in Mexico. Like I went all the way to high school. I was just in Mexico, Mexico City. Sure, like you know, I had all the influences from here and there, but that's where I was. That's what I knew. I did live 1 year in the U.S. when I was like 12 years old, almost a year in Colorado. But you know, I'm Mexican, right? So then I went to Israel, and then I lived half of my life in Israel.
Yeah,
So actually, I even forgot how to speak Spanish well over there.
yeah.
Like I didn't have anybody to talk to.
That's another aspect of it that people don't understand.
Yeah.
When you immerse yourself in another culture,
Yeah.
like people look at hear my English, and like, how did you do that?
So I became Israeli there, and I lost a lot of connection to Mexico there. Like I even like started to like forget a lot about Mexico.
Yeah.
By the way, the thing I missed the most about Mexico was the food always.
We're gonna go get some tacos in a bit. Avi's gonna be. He discovered some new tacos here for that, Avi.
And so when I came back, now that I'm in Texas, I feel like I've reconnected a lot to Mexico. And I'm very grateful for that. Because, you know, now there's people that speak the language, right? Now I see like parts of the culture that I can recognize. And I'm even Mexican enough to be like, well, you know, Mexico's not really like that. But I feel like the connection again, right? So then
it's funny. It's funny how far we have to get from Mexico to find that connection sometimes.
So I've reconnected a lot with my heritage, I guess, or whatever you could describe it. But at the end of the day, I'm always going to be a lone wolf. I'm always going to be a person who, I mean, I'm a little bit of this and a little bit of that, man. Like I'm not denying it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna walk in Mexico City. Someone's gonna think that I'm American. I'm gonna walk in Israel. Someone's gonna say that I'm Mexican. Like it is what it is.
I think there's a beautiful quote that I read somewhere on a bathroom wall. I love arriving, but I was born to leave.
That's good. I never heard that one before.
I've been running around myself for a bit. I'm about to turn 41 in the coming month.
Okay.
And I'm kind of ready to slow the fucking down. Just a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Don't let yourself do it, man.
But, you know, every now, like I think I need my 6 months, I guess, to figure out what the next fight is going to be about. You do a lot of work right now in the training industry and work. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I came to the U.S. with Tactical Fitness Austin. That's where I work. It's based out of Austin, and we do training, you know, all over the country, really, but mostly in Texas. The training is firearms, it's combatives, you know, that's like one aspect of it. I brought a course to that company also that I kind of like because you know, I like training people. I've never done a job for the money. Okay, I have to be honest. It might sound not honest to some people, but it's the damn truth. Like I've given up jobs that offer me a lot of money to do something I want.
Yeah.
So when I train people, I want to first of all, if I can bring their security up, right? If they can really protect themselves, their family, that's great. And even if I can just make someone, have success in their journey of what they want to achieve, that gives me satisfaction as an instructor, as a teacher. So I brought a course, it's called the Family Protector. And I'm trying to bring the experience as a dignitary protection agent, as a law enforcement officer in this unit, as a soldier, as all of this stuff, and trying to put together with how do you protect your family. So it's combative in terms of like defensive pistol, right? Concealed carry. It's third-party protection techniques. How to move someone out of the way to engage a threat. How to move away from your family to engage that threat. Sometimes you might need that
which
too.
is something a lot of people don't put
Yeah.
into the equation with
Right.
their training. I mean, they become the biggest ninja on the planet, but their family isn't
Yeah.
included in the equation.
Right.
Like,
And this is a country where you could even have your wife as part of that equation. Like she can be armed as well and trained, which is a privilege.
yeah, it's an.
But even if she's not, they have to be part of the equation, right? In your decision making, your protocols, the way that you're going to act after the fact or before the way, doing advanced work for yourself, right? As a family member, I'm doing advanced work for myself somehow, even in small elements, right? When I get to a gas station, when I get to a restaurant, when I'm walking around somewhere, I have to do some sort of advanced work for myself, or even just my security awareness, so that I'm ready or readier, right? Like
Yeah.
a little more ready from when something happens. So this course is about that. I brought that on, and we've been teaching that. It's been very successful in our area. Like that course is full, and then it's growing, and people seem to have a very positive response to it because they feel they're getting something.
Yeah.
That's, I think, something special I bring to that world. On the other hand, as part of my work there, I also work for Alert, the law enforcement training center out of Texas State University. And I'd heard about Alert before from a friend. He's like, hey, it's a great school, man. You should look into that. And then I ran into these guys, and somehow, they gave me that respect of like, hey, come do the course and let's see if you're fit for this.
Yeah.
And I've been working for them, not a lot, but I'm getting into it. It's a fantastic program. It's a great organization. I also get to like, I'm starting to rub shoulders more with law enforcement here, which is kind of like what I wanted as well. Right?
Yeah.
That's coming from where I come. I need to like kind of like understand the people here. And
What is your experience with law enforcement? Like coming from where you came from, and now seeing law enforcement in the U.S. and some of the issues they're facing right now? Like, what are your opinions on?
You know what's funny is that everything. Some people don't realize this, but everything that happens in the U.S. it's kind of like a wave, and it gets to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Like when the 2020 stuff was happening here, I was arresting someone one day in Israel, and I heard them say, "Hey, he can't breathe. He can't breathe."
Yeah.
They're like killing him. He can't breathe.
So jiu-jitsu was canceled for cops in the U.S. basically.
Well, yeah, the chokeholds. Right? Well, in some states you can't even put your knee or anything like on the back.
Jiu-jitsu in a lot of places is being vilified now, and some of it specifically for law.
But then the problem is that if you vilify jiu-jitsu or like the hand-to-hand component, you still need to arrest someone. So that means you're transporting everything to technology, right? So you're saying, hey, my taser is going to do the job.
Yeah.
Or like they come up with like all these sorts of other technologies, which is great. Also, I think you need to know those things. You need to use those things. But at the end of the day, some of the things that we've seen on TV didn't have to happen. Like the fact that this guy sat on this man for 15 minutes and killed him. Jiu-jitsu doesn't teach you that either. Yeah. So it's actually more training the solution, not less training.
Yeah.
Law enforcement everywhere needs higher quality people and more training.
It seems that the U.S.'s response, when I say U.S., I mean the people, has been lower standards for cops.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be a cop anymore.
Right.
You go to the academies and they're like almost empty.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu is being vilified. When I say jiu-jitsu is being vilified, I mean protesters will show up and say that this is murderous stuff that you're showing these cops. Well, no.
I've even heard that the Israelis have taught them to do this, and that's what's wrong. And the funny thing is that I can tell you with confidence, Israelis did not teach anything like that because the Israeli police doesn't even know that jiu-jitsu exists. Like it didn't come from there.
It's funny, like when I talk to people around Krav Maga, like a lot of people understand or have notions of what it is.
Yeah.
But like hearing you talk about what it is, and people get sold this idea that it is an all-encompassing modern self-defense system that comes from the IDF.
Well, that's where it originated, right? But it was an idea. It broke into different angles, And these are organizations that basically I can open up a Krav Maga, I can call Krav Maga. Who's going to tell me it's not Krav Maga?
I'm not going to tell you shit.
Like, no one's going to tell me it's not Krav Maga, right? Because everybody does it differently.
Yeah.
But
If
Krav
it-
Maga at the source,
Yeah.
which is where I did it, which is the IDF. I did also my instructor's course in the IDF. I did my instructor's course in the security agency of Israel. That's the core of Krav Maga. And what it is there are techniques to disarm weapons, right? There are techniques to defend against knives, correct? Combatives. And then there's wrestling, there's boxing, there's all stuff you're going to need to do the job.
Specialized
right?
things around.
And it takes things from that, right? It'll take things from boxing, it'll take things from karate. Like a lot of these people that developed a lot of these techniques, they came from karate, from Kyokushin or things like that. For example, the sparring that we did in most of the schools is sparring to the body, not to the head. One reason for it is because they also don't want, like, for example, a dignitary protection agent with a blue eye, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't look good on
yeah.
camera. But it's also because they come from that world of karate where, like, there's going to be a lot of kicks, but it's punching to the body. Whether I agree with that or not, we introduced boxing to the school a little bit. So we had boxing classes, but they had to be we had to be extra careful because you can't have those injuries.
What do you feel like when you see it out here? Like when you see these Krav Maga gyms in the U.S. and they're doing.
I don't like the majority of them. There's some people doing good jobs.
What's your main critique when you see a civilian Krav Maga in the United States and you see like a mom showing how to get a AR-15 out of somebody's hand?
Well, the thing is that, and here when someone asks me, hey, what should I do? I have 1 day a week. Where do I go? I tell them go to an MMA gym. Because,
no, what?
Yeah, I'm going to explain to you why.
You're not going to tell them to go to a Krav Maga gym? It's sacrilegious.
So the reason I don't tell them Krav Maga is because Krav Maga has been watered down, obviously. But the problem is, who are the people who are training with you? You just described it, right?
Yeah.
So we have like this mom, we have the soccer mom, we have the guy who works in IT. And the problem that I found, because I was teaching Krav Maga also in Israel for civilians for a while. And what I realized is that the people, I was in a gym where there was Muay Thai, there was Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, and Krav Maga. And I got the students that were the weakest out of everybody. Why is that, right? The reason is that because they see it as a shortcut.
Okay. That's
boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, it's hard, man. It fucking hurts.
It's process.
And then I'm telling you, if you just do Krav Maga, you're going to learn to defend against everything. And it's not going to hurt you that much because it's quicker, right? So then it's a shortcut. And that became the premise. That became the sales point. And that's unfortunate because it really ruined it in a way.
I understand. Yeah, that's pretty good. So what's next for you? You say you're never still. What do you think is next? You basically you hit the ground running when it comes to training field here in the United States.
I've been fortunate enough, man. I've been training, also learning a lot from a lot of people, and really what we're on to now is expanding it to more classes. But I like the program that I'm doing a lot, and I think I want to expand it to other areas in the country. Develop the curriculum. I already developed it a couple times, and for now, that's the way I see it, man. I don't know what's coming in the future.
I think for me, it's something I always recommend to people, specifically Americans, when they come to train with me, for example. I say, hey, if you're not training with people that are coming from different battlefields, you're not really looking at that problem or the expansion of it. And I think you come with a very unique background and a very specific battlefield that you were a part of. And some of those lessons, man, there's no other way of getting them, Well,
I don't know how you're doing with time, but the one other thing that we do right now that I think is particular is we have, I think it's all about community too.
Yeah.
Like nowadays you have to think that you need to meet like-minded people, right? And train with them. So one of the things that we brought in Austin is that we created what's called a combat club, we call it. And it's basically like going to a martial arts class, but it's firearms, it's everything. And it's weekly, right?
Yeah.
So these people, they become friends, all of them. And they're training together. They're learning something new every month. And so that means that they're basically super advanced because it's not like, a lot of people go, they do a course 2 days, they do this, next year they do it again.
Yeah, these people,
they're training every week.
weekend.
They're keeping those skills. And I found that format to be amazing, man.
Yeah.
The people who do it, they fucking love it.
And it's needed.
We all became friends too.
Yeah,
Like it's
and it's needed. Like it's men. Like
it's men and women.
yeah. Like it's I guess a community like this shit.
Yeah, we're like we have get-togethers. We're like talking to each other like when they're not training. That's the real test. It's
Yeah.
like, do people meet when they're not like on training? And they're all fucking awesome guys and girls. Like they're really stand-up people, and that you can only have that when you have a class like that. That requires that sense of commitment. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's a good format, and I like it, and I'm grateful every time I teach that class. I'm super stoked, man, for all the classes I teach like that. Yeah.
Family. Yeah. What does that look like? Kid?
Yeah, I have an 8-month-old now. He's almost 9 months now.
Just one.
Just one for now.
What does that feel like? Does it feel like you
It's
rip your
amazing.
heart off your chest and now it's walking around somewhere?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Vulnerability.
It's a very good one. Yeah.
Vulnerability.
I mean, I feel super grateful, first of all.
That's it.
I think I'm mature enough to be grateful for it.
The amount of shit you had to go through and the amount of stuff that happened around you that
Yeah.
was going to keep you from that. And then you find yourself there.
To the last moment, by the way. Yeah.
So that kid is basically, I always think about that with my kid, the amount of times that I was really close to not being there. And all of a sudden you find yourself complaining about ice cream in a shop somewhere where you're the 8-year-old and how valuable that is. And when you think about what it took for you to get there, man.
I think also as a direction in life of value, right? Like, for example, a lot of us do things that we do because we want to leave a mark.
Yeah.
But, how deep is my mark? How deep is your mark? How deep is everybody's mark? Like, unless, you're a, I don't know, whatever name. And when you have a child, that is a mark.
With your kid, the boy.
He's a masculine boy.
Is he like I mean, just imagine he was born with a beard for some reason. Yeah, great. You say your dad wasn't, he's just gone.
Yeah, well, that's the challenge now.
But for you, like, what does that do for you as far as you're being a dad now?
I was thinking about it because I guess my journey is going to continue. Where I have to find how to do it. I don't really have a good example for it.
Yeah.
So I have to figure out how I'm going to do it and how I'm going to be that father figure, So in a way, it might be boring for some people, but I guess it's the next challenge for me.
Oh, it is the biggest one.
Yeah.
I had parents for most of my life, and then they had to go away because something happened. And I don't blame them, It dawned on me, specifically with my mom. My mom grew up without a dad, and I couldn't figure out what she was trying to do to me as far as what she was forming me to be. And when I get to do stuff with my kid, and it's very specific, like my mom showed me how to plant roses, so I'm showing my kid how to do that. My mom made me into the dad that she wishes she had.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think my mom tried to do that too. Yeah.
And I think like your kid, I mean, that's a drive, man. You're going to give that kid.
Well, you're talking about the roses. I have a couple of things. Like, for example, my grandfather, my uncle actually, he told me how to drive with the knee.
Yeah.
So I can do that.
Yeah.
I'm 100% going to teach him that.
Yeah, knee driving?
The driving the thing, other stuff. And, but yeah, it's a beautiful thing, man. I think it's challenging, but it's just being grateful, man. Like
it's the biggest challenge, and legit, it's the only job you will be remembered for.
Exactly.
Where can people find out more about you and the work you're doing?
Well, people can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Disciplined Papo.
Yeah.
And I'm on LinkedIn also, Bernardo CT. You can find on our website, tacticalfitnessaustin.com. And that's where, we have all the courses and classes and, stuff. And you can reach out and follow Tactical Fitness Austin as well. That's pretty much it. But I'm in south of Austin, Texas. If anybody's around there and wants to find the good places to eat,
And get into a weird combatives club with a bunch of weirdos that are trading how to be murderous.
It'll be enjoyable, though. I mean, I already had some of those visitors, and then they loved it. Yeah.
If you're in Austin, you know where to go.
Yeah.
Bernardo, thank you so much for this conversation. This was
Thanks,
amazing. And for anybody out there, being young and aimless, who would think that they can't do shit, that you're a pretty good example of how far you can go if you just basically look forward instead of looking back for a bit.
Right.
So thank you.
Sure.
Let's go get some fucking fire tacos.
Let's do it.
Vámonos, Avi. Vámonos.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for everybody to watch, and thanks for Avi and everybody.
Dude,
Pleasure,
thank you.
man. Privilege.